Chapter 1845. In order not to frighten the weak souls of these children, the two of them even used all their strength to completely block out the murderous aura of their souls, leaving only a gentle soul force that was like a spring breeze. It would only make people feel comfortable and would not cause any discomfort. This is from P. Looking through them one by one, they were more and more shocked. Oh my God. These children are very naughty. Chu Yang's eyes were full of indulgence as he smiled. During this period of time, they have been really lawless. They have ruined all my flowers and plants. I can't bear to scold them. They are all children, it's in their nature to be playful. The two of them stared at him with endless disdain. Flowers and plants? What a joke. It's already a blessing for these children to have the chance to ruin your flowers and plants. If these children were in our sect, they would be ruining the spiritual herbs. And no one would blame them. How could they ruin the spiritual herbs that were given to them? These 2 days, they were so shocked that they could not even speak properly. Seniors, I am preparing to build a huge business empire. Chu Yang clasped his hands behind his back and puffed out his chest. Then, he said in an imposing manner, you see, these children are a bit naughty. But each one of them is very talented. I'm teaching them how to read and write, as well as how to do arithmetic. So, each and every one of them will become a pillar of support for me in the future. If I send them out, any one of them will be a famous accountant. It was a loud and clear accounting room. Hearing this, Xue Xian and Hai Mingbo almost fainted. If it was an ordinary sect, every child here would be able to shoulder the burden alone. Even in a super sect like ours. He was also one of the rare heaven's proud sons of heaven. You want to nurture them to be accountants? What a waste of resources. The two of them had finally seen what a waste of resources was like today. For a moment, Xue Xian and Hai Mingbo had a very strong urge to grab Chu Yang with one hand and pull out all his limbs. Then they would strangle him to death. Then they would chop him into minced meat and feed him to the dogs. No one is as despicable as you. But this was just an impulse. They only dared to think about it. Not to mention, Yen Russian might not even be able to get past this kid. These children's dependence on Chu Yang had already exceeded common sense after this period of contact and experimentation. If these two dared to touch Chu Yang, these children would go up and bite them to death without any hesitation. Although the two of them were experts, when faced with such a big group of super talented future geniuses, they were nothing. There were some things that he really didn't dare to do. At this moment, the group of kids who were originally running had already finished their run. Intentionally or unintentionally, he began to pay attention to this side. The next moment, a sharp child's voice rang out. Those two perverts are here again. They are the ones who want to take us away. Boom. Instantly, everyone looked over. Pairs of clear eyes stared at Hai Pinbo and Xue Xian. It was full of hostility. In the eyes of the children, these two people were the main culprits who had come to ruin their happy lives. Even if it was not for the time being. Who knew if it would happen in a few days? If they didn't know that they definitely couldn't beat them, they really wanted to bite them. Towards the children's reaction, Chu Yang's expression was amiable, but he was actually extremely satisfied. In his heart, he was practically bursting with joy. Hai Pinbo and Xue Xian's faces turned green. Oh heavens, oh earth, so many geniuses, each and every one of them looked at them as if they were looking at a mortal enemy. Really? But no matter what, at this moment, Xue Xian had already made up her mind. There were so many geniuses, she definitely couldn't divide them equally to Lingxiao faction according to the agreement. She wanted at least 70%. If she could get more, it would naturally be better. As for the bullshit alliance and not mistreating allies, all of that could go to hell. Otherwise, the next generation's competition would be too strong. If she wasn't careful, she could even be overturned and let Lingxiao faction ride on top of dreamlike Veranda's head. That would be embarrassing. In the face of so many geniuses at the same time, even Mo Qingwu, who was extremely talented, might not be enough. After all, Mo Qingwu was only one person, and there were hundreds of geniuses here. However, Mo Qingwu's absolute position was also unshakable no matter how many geniuses there were. After all, Quantitative change couldn't compare to qualitative change. Hai Pinbo and Shuexian's eyes were red. It was just that the current situation was indeed a headache. No matter if they wanted to forcefully demand or even forcefully snatch, they couldn't do it. Although in the long run, it was worth any price to get such a terrifying number of geniuses, but the current situation was really very special. Let's not talk about Yen Russian, who was the representative of the government, who had unequivocally become Chu Yang's backer. These children's dependence on Chu Yang was almost unshakable by external forces. If they were to force their way in, it would only result in mutual destruction. Even if they were to disregard everything and forcefully kidnap the kidnapped children would only hate the kidnappers. It was no joke to be hated by such a genius child. The only effective solution now was to rely on Chu Yang's persuasion. But this was a very troublesome matter. Looking at Chu Yang's calm face, the two couldn't wait to skin this guy alive. This guy must be overjoyed in his heart. But now, they could only allow him to open his mouth. This guy's heart was so black. Now that he had the initiative, how could he not open his mouth? Children! Chu Yang clapped his hands. Instantly, more than 100 people swarmed over like bees. They looked at Chu Yang eagerly. Big brother Chu, don't chase us away. I can already work now. Please let us stay. We will definitely be obedient. We won't leave even if we die. Boo-hoo, they are all bad people. Don't let us go with bad people. A wave of pleading voices came one after another, each louder than the previous. Chu Yang laughed loudly. He said, "What are you little brats thinking? Don't worry, I can't bear to let you go. How can I bear to let you fall into the hands of bad people and be tortured? Am I that kind of person?" All the children shook their heads vigorously. Their faces were full of trust. Hai Pinbo and Shuexian rolled their eyes. What do you mean by, fall into the hands of bad people and be tortured? Are we bad people? We are going to give them great opportunities. This is definitely a great opportunity to reach the heavens in a single step. The more the two of them chased after each other, the more sullen they felt. They clearly had earth-shattering cultivation. But they couldn't do anything here. They even had to ask for help from an earth-level ant. They even had to beg for help in a submissive manner. What the fuck is this? They followed Chu Yang to the living room. Looking at the fragrant tea that was already served, they didn't have the heart to swallow it. Depressed, they forced themselves to drink. They were afraid they would choke. 50 heads, 1 person. Chu Yang stretched out 5 fingers. This condition doesn't change. The two were a little absent-minded. The worst thing about killing people was not being able to get started. Now that they had confirmed their enmity with the Iron Blood Alliance. And they had already killed more than 100 people. Further action. Cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots became the top priority. This point, even without Chu Yang's reminder, the two would do it themselves. The sooner it was settled, the better. Could it be that they were waiting for the Iron Blood Alliance to attack from all sides and create trouble for themselves? Not to mention that there would be such a generous reward after killing people. Just kill as much as you want. When the time comes, if there are more heads, even if each of you bring 20,000 heads, I can give you the number of geniuses. Chu Yang said until here. Finally, his wolf's ambition was revealed. 20,000 people? According to the agreement, 20,000 people could be exchanged for 400 geniuses. If it was based on the premise of each person, the number would be doubled, which was 800 people. 800 people? 800 geniuses? Could it be that geniuses were worthless now and cabbages were everywhere? Where did you find so many geniuses? The two suddenly thought of this question. Both of them were intelligent people. Logically speaking, they should have thought of this long ago. It was just that the shock they received these few days was too great and too frequent. So much so that they only thought of asking this question now. After they asked the question, they were all shocked at the same time. Yes, where did so many geniuses come from? The answer to this question is to ask my sworn brother. Chu Yang was unperturbed. Without hesitation, he pushed Yen Russian out as a shield. This matter is really like a child who has lost his mother. It's a long story. I'd like to hear the details. Both of them hated this guy for betraying them at such a crucial moment. At that time, with some money, I wanted to build up my own strength. But in this Heaven Imperial Court, any place with a little bit of development potential had already been divided up. There were no experts who would seek refuge with me at all. Moreover, the other two clans in Wuxia City were already eyeing me covetously. They would never allow me to develop at ease. In view of this, I simply took in all the orphans, beggars and street children around Wuxia City. I prepared to nurture them myself. Even if it took a longer time, after all, this was the most reliable way. After my sworn brother saw this situation, I don't know what method he used, but he asked many of his friends to search for these children from other places and send them to me. Some of these children were quite good. The major clans hadn't opened their doors to search for disciples for the past few hundred years. And these children were all alone and had no one to rely on. So, regardless of whether their talents were good or bad, as long as I could see them, I brought them here. In all fairness, Chu Yang's explanation seemed to make some sense on the surface. But it was still very far-fetched. How many good seedlings could there be in the land of orphans and street children? Even if the major clans closed their doors, how many of them could be left behind? Not to mention the fact that all the major clans had preachers constantly searching for them. After hearing this, Hai Linbua and Xue Xian finally understood some of these children's origins. Their hearts trembled. Orphans. Beggars. Chapter 1846. Orphans. Beggars. Street children. In such a place, unless there are no talents, once a talent appears, he or she must be a ruthless person. Because they had gone through too much hardship. Ordinary children could not compare to them. In terms of life, those children from wealthy families are undoubtedly much better off than these children. However, in terms of martial arts, these children from poor backgrounds were much better than those from wealthy families. At least in terms of temperament, the two were comparable. One was a gentle pet raised at home, while the other was a hungry wolf that had been honed by wind and frost. How could they be compared? Other aspects could be made up for in different ways. But the toughness of one's spirit was not something that could be made up for in any way. Thinking of this, the two became even more eager. And then? Hai Lianbua asked. And then, the mysterious guest that Brother Yen introduced came. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows and said, Brother Yen seemed to be very afraid of that person? Maybe I shouldn't say that he was afraid, but a kind of unspeakable feeling. Chu Yang raised his head, his eyes darting around as if he was trying to find the right words. Reverence? Hai Lianbua asked. Endless reverence? Xue Xian asked suspiciously. It's both sides, but it's not completely the same. Chu Yang shook his head in distress. Actually, from what I see, that guest is very kind. She played with my group of little guys for 2 days. Then he said that it was a pity. Then he took out a white jade. White jade? The two frowned at the same time. Obviously. The crux of the matter was this white jade. That was a pure white jade that naturally emitted a holy light. Then that old man said, Sai, there's only one left in this world. Since it's fated to be with you, I'll give it to you. So, I might as well let you guys take advantage of me. Chu Yang said as if he was serious. He was even mimicking the tone of an old man when he said those words. At this point, Hai Lianbua and Xue Xian held their breaths. Obviously, the facts that Chu Yang had told them were far beyond their expectations. It was even beyond their comprehension. Then, the old man asked me to bring over a large vat. Then, he reached out and grabbed a ball of water from thin air, filling the vat to the brim. And then, so he threw the piece of jade inside. Chu Yang said, so, something even more unbelievable happened. After the jade is thrown into the water, it quickly dissolves in the water. I saw the jade dissolving bit by bit. It's as if the universe is disintegrating in front of me. That scene might not be what I had described. But that's the gist of it. I don't know how to explain it clearly. On the other side, Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian both frowned. He pondered bitterly. What the hell was that thing? Just a piece of jade could create such a miracle. It was really as Chu Yang had said, it was really inconceivable. Then he asked each of the children here to drink a cup of tea. At least the vat is bigger and there's enough to share. Chu Yang smiled and said proudly, "But I didn't drink it." "Why didn't you drink it?" the two asked together. The two realized that the water must be extraordinary. To be able to transform so many children's talents, how could ordinary water do that? But since it was extraordinary, how could Chu Yang, the owner, not enjoy it together? "That elder said that my talents are the best in the world and I don't need to drink this anymore. Too much is as bad as not enough." Chu Yang said proudly, "So I didn't drink it." Pfft. Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian were drinking tea. When they heard this, they spat out the tea on Chu Yang's face at the same time. Then they coughed with strange expressions. One on each side. In an instant, Chu Yang's face was washed evenly. "What are you guys doing?" Chu Yang was innocent, depressed, and angry at the same time. He glared at them angrily. This anger was half real and half fake. Although Chu Yang understood their actions, understanding was not the same as approval. No one would be in a good mood after being sprayed. But what made Chu Yang the most confused was that they had no time to react. The speed at which they sprayed the water was so shockingly fast. So what if your cultivation is high? It was amazing to have a high cultivation. To be honest, if Chu Yang was at the same level as Xue Xian and Elder Hai, these 2 mouthfuls of tea wouldn't have hit his face. On one hand, Chu Yang's current cultivation was too shallow. On the other hand, these 2 people were much stronger than Chu Yang. Even if they had done it unintentionally, Chu Yang still had room to dodge. Cough, 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 cough. Cough, cough, cough. Cough, cough, cough. The 2 coughed nonstop. Their faces were red as they apologized. "Sorry, really sorry. I couldn't hold it in." The 2 of them had to use their entire life's worth of skills to forcefully hold themselves back from laughing out loud. Top-grade talents. No need to consume. Too much is as bad as not enough. Looking at this guy's proud and satisfied face, it really makes me feel scared from the bottom of my heart. Top-grade talents in the world? No need to drink this? Too much is as bad as not enough. This sentence was really too hilarious. Which senior is truly a wonderful person? It was obvious that he could tell that it was a waste to use such a good thing on him. "Brother Chu, please continue." Cough, cough. And then? Hai Xiaobo continued to ask. And then he left. Chu Yang raised his brows and smiled. But before he left a sentence. "These children have unlimited potential in the future. They will definitely be able to show off their skills." The 2 fell into deep thought at the same time. There was no doubt and no doubt. These children were all true geniuses now. They definitely had a direct connection to that piece of jade. In other words, a mere piece of jade melted into a vat of water. Everyone had a cup of water. Then all of them were reborn. What kind of jade was that? There was actually such a treasure in the world? Yes, Chu Yang repeated that person's words just now. There is only one piece in the world. What kind of jade was it? Why was it so precious? It actually had such a shocking effect. Both of them were experienced and knowledgeable people. They had hundreds of thousands of years of experience. But now they were still confused. They could not figure out what it was. They almost broke their heads thinking but still could not figure it out. But the caution and shock in their hearts. Their YNG had reached the peak. They originally thought that that person was probably a saint-level expert. But now, it seemed that person's cultivation level. His YNG was at least at the level of a great emperor. In fact, perhaps, it might even be higher. Who was that person? At this moment, the feeling of looking up to a tall mountain surged into their hearts and filled their hearts. A vat of water created these children. Xue Xian frowned. She was a little cautious when she asked this question. These? Not only that, there are many more. Chu Yang said, "Anyway, there are more than 100. How many are there?" Hai Mingbo asked anxiously. "How can I tell you this? Do you really think I'm stupid?" Chu Yang laughed. Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian almost fainted. It was not because they were angered by Chu Yang's rejection, but because they had confirmed it. This guy really had more than 100 geniuses in his hands? Shocking. Now the problem has changed. How can the Iron Blood Alliance have so many people to kill? Even if we kill all of them, how many can we exchange for? The two were really worried. There was a huge pile of immortal peaches right in front of them. But ZJ could not afford it. Although ZJ had the capital, the other party did not recognize ZJ's capital. It's not that there is no room for negotiation. You can use other things too. I'm a very easygoing person. Chu Yang laughed. For example, things like the resurrection grass can be exchanged for one stalk. If there are other heavenly treasures of the same level, as long as you can bring them to me, I will definitely let you have your way. The resurrection grass is so precious. One stalk can be exchanged for at least 5. Shui Xian made a prompt decision and immediately increased the price. This was a woman's innate ability to bargain. Most men did not have this talent. Actually, Shui Xian regretted it the moment she opened her mouth. It was good that they could exchange for it. Why did she have to increase the price? Wouldn't ZJ be even more depressed if the resurrection grass was not exchanged? It's only limited to one stalk. Chu Yang hurriedly agreed. If he remembered wrongly, Duan Songkong had said that the resurrection grass that appeared previously was in the hands of the dreamlike veranda. The resurrection grass was urgently needed. It was something that they needed now. So be it. For Wu Qianqian to wake up and for Duan Songkong to recover, this grass was the key. Deal. Shui Xian immediately agreed. The sect had coincidentally received a stalk of resurrection grass previously. There were 2 other stalks of better quality in the sect. It was not a big deal to give up this stalk. He made up his mind. Let them send it over immediately. He could even send out 2 more stalks. Each stalk could be exchanged for 5 people. That would be even more ideal. There was no need to consider further. Shui Xian had already settled a few stalks. Naturally, Hai Mingbo was a little anxious. I say, little brother Chu, I've brought 50 stalks. Do you think? Hai Mingbo was very anxious. I have 50 stalks here too, Shui Xian said. But let's check it later. As long as you come in and out, we can decide on a person. Isn't this a very simple matter? Chu Yang smiled and said, don't worry, I'll keep it for you. If you think it's enough, you can take it with you. I guarantee that none of you will be willing to take it with you when the time comes. The two chatted for a while and stood up to leave at the same time. As soon as they stepped out of the Chu clan's courtyard, the two looked at each other at the door. They saw the strong fighting spirit in each other's eyes. Then, the two of them turned into shooting stars and disappeared at an extremely fast speed. Chapter 1847. Shui Xian immediately sent a message back. I hope the sect can send experts to deliver the 2 stalks of resurrection grass to Purple Cloud City. Also, organize people to kill the Iron Blood Alliance and leave their heads behind. The faster, the better. It's urgent. There's no time to lose. We found a large number of geniuses here. Every one of them has the potential to become a core disciple of the sect, but they need to be exchanged with the heads of the Iron Blood Alliance. 50 heads for one. She hurriedly sent the message out. Hailingbo also did the same thing at the same time. But he also added, now, Dreamlike Veranda has obtained the same opportunity as us. If the sect doesn't act soon, I'm afraid the consequences will be dire. The golden opportunity is right in front of us. Once we miss it, it won't come again. Thousands of miles away. The two sects immediately started the follow-up operation. The Iron Blood Alliance, which was still shrouded in a dense fog, immediately met with an unprecedented disaster. The number 1 sect and number 2 sect of the Eastern Royal Heavens attacked at the same time, sending large forces to kill them all. To the Iron Blood Alliance, which was only ranked 13th in the Eastern Royal Heavens, this was definitely a disaster. Although the two sects were in competition, it was even more deadly for the Iron Blood Alliance. The two sides were simply competing. One side killed 8,000 people, and the other side fought for 10,000. Moreover, all the Iron Blood Alliance members who were surrounded were confused and felt wronged. What did we do to you? How could you be so unreasonable as to encircle and annihilate us? And so ruthlessly? You can kill us, but give us a reason first? Is it too much to ask for an explanation before I die? Is it too much? But the people who participated in the attack didn't even know why the higher-ups of their sects were fighting. They only knew one thing: kill them and bring their heads back. Even killing them wasn't the key. The key was the number of heads. But what was the difference between this request and completely destroying the Iron Blood Alliance? Therefore, the two sects didn't need to discuss anything. They agreed. Do we need a reason to kill you? We're a righteous sect. Kill you. We're enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Getting rid of evil for the people. Therefore, the Iron Blood Alliance members all vomited blood. Yes, we're evil, we're despicable, we've never done anything good, but you've known all these long ago, okay? It's been thousands of years and you guys haven't said anything. You've never interfered. Why did they suddenly decide to settle the score and launch an all-out attack? What the hell is going on? The two sects attacked with all their might, from the outside to the inside. In less than a day, they had already dug out the Iron Blood Alliance's base. Then, they rushed over in a grandiose manner. Time was of the essence, and the sooner things changed, the better. Right now, Wuxia City was in the midst of a storm. If the secret was leaked out and the other super sects knew about the existence of those geniuses, then the result would be hard to say. In the end, the Iron Blood Alliance had more than 20,000 people. After this fierce battle, most of them were annihilated. Only a few thousand people remained. As for the headquarters of the Iron Blood Alliance, which had been completely ravaged by the two sects, it had turned into ruins. The two sects were still chasing after the fish that escaped the net, as if they were determined not to return until they cut off the heads of the fish that escaped the net. The members of the Iron Blood Alliance still didn't understand why they were facing such a calamity. What was the reason? The Iron Blood Alliance's leader, Fong Dalei, who was originally in seclusion, came out because of the critical situation. But he didn't have much use. He was seriously injured by the two experts of Dreamlike Veranda. He was lucky enough to escape, but he didn't forget to search for the truth, what was going on. What was the reason for these two sects to be so ruthless? If the members of the Iron Blood Alliance knew that this disaster was caused by the third leader, Gu Xinwu, the greedy wolf, messing up Chu Yang's auction and threatening Chu Yang, Gu Xinwu's whole family would probably be eaten alive. Why did you provoke such a killing god for no reason? Wasn't this just looking for trouble? But how was this not looking for trouble? It was simply looking for death. Moreover, it was dragging the entire Iron Blood Alliance to hell with it. Of course, all these grievances happened in the vast Jianghu outside. For the time being, Chu Yang still couldn't get much specific information. Right now, Chu Yang was busy with another matter. The reason was simple. It was that things would change if things were delayed. The super sects of the other realms also arrived one after another in these 2 days. The super sects of the major realms arrived one after another, making Shui Xian and Hai Lianbo feel heavy pressure in their hearts. There was a subtle feeling of danger lurking everywhere. Apart from the people from the Demon Emperor Heaven, Buddha Heaven, and the Big Western Sky, these 3 directions, the people from the other heavens had unexpectedly all come in a unified organization. The major sects were all ranked according to the Heaven Imperial Court's strength, orderly and orderly. Looking at the other's mighty and majestic arrival, and then looking at her own side that was like a plate of loose sand, Shui Xian sincerely felt an enormous pressure. Under this kind of pressure, the major sects of Eastern Royal Heaven had no choice but to temporarily put down their grievances and disputes, and quickly carried out integration. But the previous period of fighting and killing made many sects have new blood debts between them. Even if they reluctantly joined forces, it was mostly cold. Quarrels would arise at the slightest provocation. If they couldn't stop it in time, the next thing would be swords against each other. Regarding this, Shui Xian and Hai Lianbo both had extreme headaches, but they didn't have a good solution. And invisibly, Chu Yang's auction hall, after this auction, actually became the meeting place of Eastern Royal Heaven's Jianghu. As long as there was something, everyone liked to come here to discuss. This point made Chu Yang extremely speechless. Can't you discuss somewhere else? Must you come here? Discussions are all secret. Discussing here, aren't you afraid of leaking information? Even if you aren't afraid of the risk, I'm afraid of the responsibility. Isn't it annoying? But this kind of situation was actually very easy to understand. That auction faintly gave people a kind of feeling. A peerless expert was secretly helping Eastern Royal Heaven's Jianghu through the Heavenly Armament Auction Hall. Chu Yang used this reason to ensure that not only was the Heavenly Armament Auction Hall safe and sound from this incident, but it also got the opportunity to develop in the long run. But because of this, it also attracted countless troubles. Was this a blessing or a curse? If it was said to be lifting a rock and smashing one's own foot, it didn't seem to be that serious. In any case, there really wasn't anything in this world that didn't have 100 advantages and no disadvantages. The infinite boundless mountain was still full of people, but the strange thing was that none of the super sects sent anyone over to participate, not even to take a look. Although everyone was here for the peerless treasure under the soul-suppressing stone, no one went over in the end. Everyone was stationed far away, and everyone was so calm and peaceful, as if they were here for a vacation and not to fight for treasures. They didn't even do a basic survey of the terrain. Chu Yang let Brother Tiger carry him high up in the sky to take a look. He saw that within a radius of a few thousand miles, the people of the greater heaven and earth were all in a circle, clearly separated from each other. Many people also used this opportunity to find some old friends that they hadn't seen for thousands of years to chat and drink. In any case, the atmosphere was very peaceful. This situation made Chu Yang's jaw drop. What was going on? On this day, Xue Xian and the rest gathered at the Heavenly Armament Auction Hall to discuss matters again. And because Chu Yang's cultivation was too low, he didn't have the right to participate and was mercilessly expelled. Minister Chu angrily returned to the Chu clan's courtyard at the back, muttering and cursing along the way. Isn't being old just a little lower in cultivation? You bunch of bastards are using the old place, eating and drinking the old, but you chase the old away. What kind of behavior is this? It's simply extremely vile. Just you wait, I'll get back at you. When he returned to the entrance of the Chu clan's courtyard, he suddenly sensed something. He looked up and saw 3 people standing in front of his house, smiling and looking at him. Even with Chu Yang's experience, he couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, "How elegant! These 3 people are really dragons and phoenixes, absolutely extraordinary." In front of the Chu clan's courtyard, there were 3 people. One of them was tall and slender. Although he was only of average height, he gave people a feeling of elegance. He wore a snow-white robe and stood there with his hands behind his back, his aura distant. It was as if this world was full of filth, and he was the only one who stood above the world. Without any words or actions, he naturally showed a holy and noble aura. He had a head of black hair, a jade-like face, slender eyebrows, majestic eyes, a high nose, and a small red mouth. Although he was a man, he was born with the face of a peerless beauty. But he didn't give people a feeling of femininity. On the contrary, he gave people a more heroic aura. In short, the feeling this person gave people, in addition to a kind of natural elegance and nobility, there was also an indescribable sense of holiness. In addition, although he was arrogant and bossy, it didn't make people feel disgusted. It was as if he was a natural leader, a natural king. This person's age shouldn't be old. At best, he was in his 20s, slightly older than Chu Yang. But he also gave people a deep and experienced feeling that the world was under his control. Chu Yang's expression didn't change, but his pupils shrank slightly. The moment he saw this young man, for the first time in his life, he had a strong feeling of an opponent. This unusually strong feeling was indeed unprecedented. Even when he first met Diwu Qingro, he didn't have such a strong feeling. It was as if this person in front of him was his destined opponent, an opponent he couldn't avoid. In addition, this person's appearance and temperament gave him a feeling very similar to when he first met Tai Butian outside Iron Cloud Citadel. That was the aura of a natural king. Chapter 1848. If that was all, Chu Yang's impression of this person would probably be that he valued him very much. However, this person's aura, composure, and the special feeling that everything was under his control were actually similar to the feeling that Mo Tianji gave him. In fact, it was even better than that. This person was definitely not to be trifled with. At least, not in the short term. Chu Yang made this judgment in his heart and secretly became somewhat vigilant. Opponent. Beside the white-robed man stood a black-robed young man. This young man in black was also not very old, looking about 27 or 28 years old. His clothes were as black as ink. His eyebrows were sword-like and his eyes were bright. The contours of his face were as if they were carved by a knife. The lines were so rigid that it gave people a feeling of uncanny workmanship. This face seemed to be made with a mold. It didn't look natural at all. But it was indeed natural. Although thin and weak, it gave people a feeling of iron and blood. This person also had his hands behind his back. A pair of cold eyes looked at Chu Yang. Those two cold eyes fell on Chu Yang's face. It actually made Chu Yang feel as if there were actual needles pricking him. His face faintly hurt. The feeling that this person gave him was like the combination of Gu Du Xing and Dong Wushang. Sharp and heavy. It was just that the feeling that Gu Du Xing and Dong Wushang gave him was the feeling of someone who could entrust their lives to each other. But the feeling that this person gave him was a kind of awkwardness and discomfort that came from the bottom of his heart. Although he was smiling at this moment, and it was a kind of smile that came from the bottom of his heart. But Chu Yang could still feel waves of coldness in his heart. And a kind of coldness that came from a kind of killing intent. This person, whether now or in the future, would not be on the same path as him. This person was quite scary. Chu Yang also came to a conclusion about the second person in his heart, opponent. The last person was a young man dressed in purple. Purple had always been a color that symbolized natural nobility. But not everyone could wear purple clothes. However, when this person wore it, it complemented each other perfectly, as if it was a natural combination. This person's eyebrows were a little thick. His nose was not very straight either. Even his skin was a little dark. But the feeling that he gave people was that of a rich and powerful man who looked at the world with a smile. Extremely carefree and at ease. It was as if there was nothing in the world that he couldn't do. There was nothing that he couldn't do. At this moment, there was a smile in his eyes as he looked at Chu Yang quietly. This person gave Chu Yang the feeling that he was the most dangerous of the three. He felt as if he was facing Meng Luo and Du Shao at the same time in the third heaven. From this third person, Chu Yang made a final conclusion, opponent. He was an extremely threatening opponent. This kind of situation where he could determine whether he was a friend or a foe was not rare in Chu Yang's lifetime. Chu Yang wasn't a jealous person. But he had an incomprehensible intuition about the opponents he was about to face. He couldn't explain it in words. An opponent was an opponent. An enemy is an enemy. A friend is a friend. Brothers are brothers. There was nothing to explain. However, Chu Yang himself might not have realized it. In this world, there were not many people who were qualified to be recognized by him as his opponent. Diwu Qingru of the lower three heavens was one of them. Du Shao and the others of the third heaven could barely be regarded as his opponents. But their level was very low. The Dharma Lord of the upper three heavens was also the previous generation's think tank of the calamity. But he could also be regarded as one of them. And Chu Yang recognized him very much. Apart from him, Chu Yang didn't have any other opponents. From senior brother Shi Qianshan to the extremely powerful extraterrestrial demon, they might have enough strength to threaten Chu Yang's life. But they weren't qualified to be Chu Yang's opponents. Being regarded as Chu Yang's opponent was a great honor for a person. And that was because he wasn't inferior to anyone. Even Chu Yang himself wasn't aware of how outstanding he was at present. But it was a pity that Chu Yang wasn't aware of this proud fact. So, it was needless to say about these three people standing opposite him. But these three special people had appeared in front of him. And they had appeared here. The real opponents that Chu Yang had to face in the Heavenly Imperial Court had finally appeared, the first wave. These three people were standing on the street. They blended in perfectly with everything around them. But they were also out of place at the same time. It seemed as if they were lotus blooming in the mud without being stained. They also seemed as if the bright moon in the sky had descended to the world. harmonious and detached. While Chu Yang was sizing up these three people were sizing him up as well. This young man in black walked over calmly from the other side. His movement speed wasn't very fast, but the distance between each step was perfectly balanced. In the eyes of these three people, Chu Yang seemed to leave a clear mark on the ground with each step he took. When he walked over step by step, although there weren't any marks left on the ground, in the eyes of these three people, there were two neat rows of footsteps. The direction and distance of the first step and the second step were exactly the same. There wasn't even a millimeter of difference. The direction and distance of the heels of this step and the second step were exactly the same. The direction of the toes of the feet were exactly the same. The distance covered by each step was exactly the same. There wasn't even a millimeter of difference. He walked over just like that. But he was like the most precise machine. There wasn't any deviation at all. Not even the slightest deviation would appear. The gazes of these three people gradually became cautious, serious, and solemn. From these neat footsteps, the three people felt a pressure from their hearts at the same time. It was a kind of pressure that could suffocate their hearts and make them stop beating. But none of the three people said it out loud. They continued to observe Chu Yang. The material of his black clothes was very unique. It didn't look like the traditional clothes of the Heaven Imperial Court. But it was very fitting. Yes, there seemed to be a slight protrusion at the hem of his black robe. It didn't look like there was a weapon hidden there. But there was definitely something else. This person's eyes were very clear and pure. But the divine light in his eyes was constant. The corners of his mouth curved slightly, as if he was smiling at any time. But only those who were completely clear about this face would know. A person with such a face, if they were to become enemies with him, how vicious would his attacks be? He wouldn't give his enemy any chance. His eyes were very bright. The black and white of his eyes were very distinct. There wasn't even the slightest trace of blood. This kind of person kept himself in the most complete state of mind at all times. His feet were moving. His arms were also moving. From every strand of his hair to the soles of his feet, his entire body was in a kind of natural harmony. He didn't need to be on guard deliberately. But his most normal posture was already the most perfect defense. He could adjust all his body functions to the most suitable position at any time, any place, and any kind of sudden situation. Whether it was attacking or defending, he could do whatever he wanted. Although his every move seemed to be careless, in fact, it was a kind of strong confidence that only a person with extreme confidence could have. It was the kind of strong confidence that everything is under my control. This kind of person was always the most difficult person to deal with. At the same time, the three people opposite him came to such a conclusion about Chu Yang. These observations and discoveries about each other sounded very long. But in fact, this process was very short. Almost at the moment when both sides met, everyone had an evaluation of each other. As highly intelligent people, and also the top experts in each other's fields, everyone clearly believed in one thing. The accuracy of the first impression to determine whether one was a friend or foe was absolutely as high as 10%. Everyone was a confident person. They firmly believed that they wouldn't be wrong. If the first impression was wrong, for such people, it would be tantamount to a disaster. Because they were very stubborn. They stubbornly believed in their first impression. Chu Yang stopped at a distance of 20 feet away from the three people. This distance was very subtle. If he were to ask a question from 30 feet away, it would seem that there was a sense of distance. But the current distance made it difficult to distinguish between friend and foe. Going up to be intimate was enough. But going up to kill seemed to be equally enough. It was enough for ordinary people. The three people revealed an inexplicable smile in their eyes. They were very clear that the person in front of them had given the choice to the three of them whether they were friend or foe. But such a choice was somewhat uncomfortable for the three of them. They usually gave this choice to others. Since when was it someone else's turn to make a choice? Let you make a choice or let me make a choice? These were two completely different matters. One was active, and the other was passive. Obviously, these people weren't used to being passive. But now, they were in front of Chu Yang's house. Chu Yang was acting as the master. The three of them had no choice but to accept it. Otherwise, the following topic wouldn't be able to be discussed. Just when the three of them were unwilling, but they had no choice but to speak first, a warm and genial smile suddenly appeared on Chu Yang's face. At this moment, under the influence of his smile, the gate of the Chu clan's courtyard seemed to have suddenly turned into spring. It was intoxicating. May I ask who the three of you are? Ah. Chu Yang's eyes seemed to be smiling. The three of you have brought light to my humble home. Could it be that you've been waiting for me? I'm flattered, I'm really flattered. The unbelievably handsome young man smiled, revealing a row of snow-white teeth. It actually made people's eyes light up. Well, if your name is Chu Yang, then the three of us brothers are here to look for you. Chu Yang laughed and said cordially, "It's an honor to have the three of you come in person. It's really an honor." Chapter 1849. The three of them followed his gaze and couldn't help but laugh at the same time. Sure enough, many young ladies, including the young married women, were watching from afar with infatuated expressions on their faces. The three of them were already used to such infatuated and expectant gazes. They didn't take it to heart. They even faintly enjoyed it. Although they were teased by Chu Yang, they didn't mind. "Ha! Let's go in." The three of them laughed heartily at the same time. Chu Yang's joke made the four of them act as if they were old friends who had known each other for many years. They immediately became familiar with each other and walked in together affectionately. They seemed to be completely unguarded and without any barriers. But was this really the case? "Please sit." Chu Yang led the three of them to his study. This was a small independent room. It belonged to Chu Yang alone. At this moment, this was the first time an outsider entered this small space. The three of them sat down quietly. They seemed to have found the most suitable seat for themselves. The young man in white still chose to sit opposite Chu Yang. The other two sat on his left and right. The four of them each took a side. Chu Yang took the main seat. The four of them didn't speak first. Chu Yang was making tea. An extremely simple teapot. Chu Yang took out a small tea bag from his ring and gently opened it. There was a small pinch of gray tea inside. The next moment, Chu Yang waved his hands. The spiritual energy in the air turned into water droplets and dripped onto his palms. In the blink of an eye, it boiled. The boiling water in the air drilled into the teapot like a dragon. The tea in the teapot began to churn. In just a moment, there was already a smell of tea fragrance that seemed to seep into the bone marrow. What a fragrant smell! The young man in white arched his eyebrows, revealing a trace of intoxication from the bottom of his heart. Honorable guests have arrived. Naturally, I have to treat them with good tea. Chu Yang said softly. There was a calm and genial smile on his face. I don't have much of this tea left. I snatched it from a great brother. He's not with me now. So, I can't make it myself. I can only try to save as much as possible. I hope it can last until the day I meet him again. Oh, are you a great brother? The white-clothed duke asked curiously. If someone like Brother Chu thinks he's amazing, then he must be really amazing. The other two nodded in agreement at the same time. Yes, that brother of mine is indeed an amazing person. Chu Yang slowly said, his name is Immortal. As for this tea, it's made from the tea tree that he planted himself. He picked the tea leaves with his own hands. No one else intervened. This was the name of the tea, just as his name should be called. Tianji tea. Goody. What a great Tianji tea! The three of them exclaimed in admiration. From beginning to end, no one interfered. This in itself was a kind of extreme purity. And this brother of mine, just like his name, the mysteries of heaven were unpredictable. The mysteries of heaven are unfathomable, but to him, he can see through the mysteries of heaven and control them. With a warm smile on his face, Chu Yang said, he can summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. He can also devise strategies and determine victory from 1,000 miles away. He can also wield his sword in heaven and earth and laugh proudly in the clouds. He can even sharpen his sword in the firmament and move unhindered in the universe. He's really the #1 genius that I've seen in my life. At the same time, He's also my most reliable brother. Fortunately, he's my brother. Chu Yang smiled faintly. Although he said that he was lucky, his tone was full of bragging. His eyes were discreetly sizing up the expressions of the three people. He's indeed a talent. The white-clothed young man said seriously, if we meet, we must learn from him and make friends with him. Such a talent, we must make friends with him. The black-clothed young man nodded. We must meet the outstanding person that Brother Chu admires so much. The purple-clothed young man's eyes were full of fascination. If it were anyone else, they would think that Chu Yang was bragging when he praised Mo Tianji. However, the three people in front of him believed him immediately. There was no reason. It was just because they believed in Chu Yang and believed every word that Chu Yang said. Although each of them knew that they would never become friends with Chu Yang and that Chu Yang's friends would never be their friends, at this moment, there was a very subtle trust. A good tea needs a good character. Chu Yang waited until the tea fragrance had completely filled the study room. Then, he carefully took out 4 teacups and placed them on the table. He picked up the teapot and tilted it slightly. A clear green tea with a refreshing tea fragrance was poured into the 4 teacups one by one. Then, Chu Yang continued, the 3 of you drank my brother's heavenly secret tea. I believe that it's not a disgrace to my brother's tea. If my brother knew that we had such an opportunity to drink tea together today, and that it's heavenly secret tea, he would be very pleased. It's our honor. The 3 of them bowed. With regards to Chu Yang's words, the 3 of them indeed had a feeling that he thought highly of them. The 3 of them picked up the teacups in front of them and took a sip. Then, they closed their eyes and let the tea's fragrance roll in their mouths. After a while, they slowly swallowed and praised, heavenly secret tea. A sip of tea is indeed a wisp of heavenly secrets. Brother Chu, about this tea, I'd like to ask for some. Chu Yang laughed, that won't do. I don't have much of it myself. I'm not willing to part with it. Hearing his words, the 4 of them burst into laughter. At this moment, the atmosphere was harmonious, as if they were old friends who knew each other well. There were no grudges at all. Chu Yang picked up the teacups and invited them to drink. He blinked and smiled, you know my name, but I don't know yours. This seems a little unfair. The 3 of them laughed. In their laughter, their eyes became sharp. The harmony just now disappeared in an instant. Chu Yang, male, 20 years old. The young man in white arched his eyebrows and revealed a charming smile. He said slowly and clearly, he ascended from the heavenly level continent. When he ascended, he already had the strength of a human level. Chu Yang's deeds in the heavenly level continent cannot be verified for now. However, from a low-level plane, he could ascend to the heavenly level imperial court at the age of 20. This shows that he's a peerless genius. And for him to be able to do all this, he must have a meticulous brain. Chu Yang's wisdom should be unparalleled in the so-called heavenly level continent. The tone of the young man in white had a hint of carelessness. It seemed to be full of contempt and ridicule. But Chu Yang himself knew that this was just an illusion. The person in front of him, this opponent, was quite terrifying. He must not underestimate him at all. Even the slightest could lead to a fatal disaster, beyond redemption. He listened carefully, listening to his opponent's understanding of him. At the same time, his mind began to work quickly, looking for his exposed weakness and all the advantages that his opponent did not know. After he came up, he first met the clan master of the Miao clan. The 2 of them walked together and ate a free meal. In short, Chu Yang is like a myth, a legend. He rose in the purple cloud city, which was not eye-catching at all. Everything that happened to him seemed reasonable, but in fact, everything that happened to him was absolutely unreasonable. Because he is just a newbie, a complete newbie. A newbie who can stir up a storm here, can only rely on his wisdom and some backup plans that we still don't know about. Backup plans are not scary because they will be exposed sooner or later. As long as the pressure reaches a certain level, they will appear automatically. But Chu Yang's wisdom is worthy of everyone's attention. Also, the heavenly weapon auction hall this time around was filled with unreasonableness. But all these unreasonableness were perfectly explained by a few simple words. Not only that, all the sects and clans in the Eastern Royal Immortal realms approved of it. These 4 words are, united against a common enemy. And Chu Yang is obviously an outstanding schemer who studies people's psychology. He made full use of the psychology of the people in the Eastern Royal Heavens and put in all his effort. This allowed him to be able to do whatever he wants here, even when he is abnormally weak. The young man in white smiled gently and warmly. He looked at Chu Yang affectionately and said slowly, "Ever since the Heaven Palace was established, there has only been one person who could use the identity of a newcomer who had just ascended for less than 3 months to do all of this. Chu Yang alone. Such an achievement may not be the last, but it is truly unprecedented. Chu Yang will be the common enemy of all the ambitious geniuses in the Heaven Imperial Palace. If he is really allowed to grow, I'm afraid the situation in the Heaven Imperial Palace will change. Although there are people who say that Chu Yang's aptitude is a super trash physique, I don't think so." The young man in white showed strong confidence in his eyes. Because such a person, even if he is weak, he can still stir up a storm. Moreover, he is already at the Earth grade now. In 3 months, he rose from the human grade to the Earth grade. Although this speed of advancement is not unprecedented in the world, it is already shocking. Can he really be a trash? My introduction is over. The young man in white turned and smiled. Do the 2 of you have anything to add? The young man in black and the young man in purple smiled bitterly at the same time. You can even count how many farts Chu Yang lets out every day. What else can we add? Nothing. The young man in white blushed slightly and said, "The 2 of you are really annoying." Chu Yang smiled and his expression did not change. No one knew what he was thinking at this moment. At this moment, these 3 people even told him how much he ate every day and how much he walked every day. They understood him in such detail that it made people tremble with fear. Moreover, they had a very high evaluation of him and attached great importance to him. This kind of attention from the opponents was enough to make anyone's hair stand on end. But Chu Yang still secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 1850. Luckily, the target of their investigation was only him. Only him. Luckily, they still made a mistake. That is, I placed too much importance on myself and neglected the people around me. Or rather, although I placed the same importance on myself, I didn't put in so much effort. Otherwise, all of his efforts might really be exposed. Chu Yang secretly heaved a sigh of relief. I can't help but admire you. Chu Yang smiled lightly. I feel like I've been stripped naked. There's actually someone who's willing to specially count how many farts I let out every day. The 3 laughed at the same time. My name is Yun Tian. I'm from the Polar Heaven Sword Alliance. The white-robed youth's delicate face revealed a shy smile. He seemed a little shy as he said, "This time, the various sects of the Polar Heavens have come to the Eastern Royal Heavens. I'll be the army's advisor and give advice to the army. It's a job that doesn't require too much physical strength." I admire you. Chu Yang couldn't help but admire him. What he said was really modest enough. This youth was about the same age as him, but he was actually the overall commander of the various sects of the Polar Heavens this time. This kind of achievement was enough to make anyone of the same age feel ashamed to death. What army's advisor? Everyone knew that these were just words of modesty. The Heavenly Sword Alliance is the undisputed #1 sect of the Heaven Imperial Court. Brother Yun is young, but you're already the leader of the rising stars of the sect. You're even able to convince the other sect's geniuses to lead the army over hundreds of thousands of miles. This kind of achievement really makes me prostrate myself in admiration. Chu Yang's words were absolutely sincere. I'm ashamed. Yun Tian smiled lightly and bowed slightly. My surname is the same as your brother Mo Tianji's. My surname is Mo as in Mo Lu. And my name is Mo Lu. If you want to laugh, feel free to laugh. Laugh all you want. I never mind. A cold smile appeared on the black-clothed youth's chiseled face as he said, "In life, no matter if you are an acquaintance, a relative, a friend, or a brother, in the end, everyone can only choose one path. Everyone else is a stranger to you." Mo Lu is me. Mo Lu is the successor of the Green Heaven sect and the Underworld sect. This time, I'm the one leading the various sects of the Green Heaven sect. Mo Lu looked at Chu Yang. He said slowly, "Brother Mo is very talented." Chu Yang said solemnly, "You flatter me." Stranger's face was as cold as steel. There was no expression on his well-defined face. Chu Yang then focused his gaze on the purple-clothed youth. "My surname is coincidentally the color of my clothes. My surname is Z. My name is Purple Emperor." The purple-clothed youth spoke in a natural and unrestrained manner. "Everyone from the great overarching heaven world, follow me. I, the Violet Emperor, am from the Heart-Seeking Sword Pavilion." Heart-Seeking Sword Pavilion? Chu Yang muttered to himself. He recalled a sentence on the honor roll. Dreamlike Veranda and Heart-Seeking Sword Pavilion are about the same in terms of strength. The competition in 500 years is drawing near, and it's hard to tell who will emerge victorious, but looking at this Purple Emperor now, Chu Yang actually couldn't help but worry about Dreamlike Veranda. The Purple Emperor was such a genius. It wasn't something that could appear so casually. To be his enemy, one had to be prepared. These three people were actually the leaders and decision-makers of all the sects in the three great heavens and earth. Chu Yang couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Chu Yang was very arrogant in his bones. Quite arrogant. He also believed that he was definitely not inferior to these three people. Even if the other party's strength was definitely higher than his, but if both sides were to fight to the death, Chu Yang's unpredictable trump cards might not necessarily be defeated. At the very least, even if he couldn't win, he could always escape. It was just that he really couldn't figure it out now. Why did these three people come to him at this moment? Chu Yang couldn't understand. He was at most a slightly famous auction hall shopkeeper now. He wasn't worthy of these three people coming in person. Although Chu Yang was sure that he would be proud of Xiao Tian in the future, he really didn't have the capital to make them look at him in a different light. Since that was the case, what was the purpose of these three people's unexpected visit? Why did they think so highly of him? Why were they so confident? Being valued by these three people was definitely not a good thing for the current Chu Yang. Of course, Chu Yang wasn't worried about the guards of these three people at all. Ever since these three people stood at the gate of the Chu clan, there were at least 30 strong divine senses surrounding them. Such a guard formation would definitely ensure their own safety. Even if all the experts of the dreamlike secular world attacked together, they could guarantee that they wouldn't die within 3 breaths and then safely retreat within 5 breaths. Brother Chu must be very curious. Why did we come here to find you? Yun Tian smiled faintly. Actually, I planned to come alone, but these two guys are also very interested in you, so they came together. It's both coincidental and inevitable. Chu Yang asked with interest. Although it was just an "oh," the meaning was profound. Little brother Chu, this is your first time in the heavenly imperial court, so you may not know. Since ancient times, there has been an iron law in the martial world. Yun Tian said with a smile, that is, the people of the martial world can be roughly divided into 3 groups. The first level is naturally those senior experts who have cultivated for more than 10,000 years. The second level is those who have cultivated for more than 1,000 years but have not reached 10,000 years. This is the so-called intermediate level. There may be differences in the strength of the people in this level, but their overall strength is on the same level. As for the third level, it's us, the youths who have cultivated for less than 100 years. These 3 levels have always been clearly separated. Moreover, the hidden rule of the martial world is that if the juniors are mischievous, the adults are not to interfere. Unless it's a matter of life and death, they are not to interfere. Even if they interfere to save someone, they are not allowed to bully the weak and injure the other party. Directly determining life and death is even more taboo. Yun Tian smiled. Therefore, in the heavenly imperial court, the forces of the martial world will only slowly strengthen and not decline. And at the same time, there will also be many people who are greedy for power, or who will join the heavenly imperial court in order to fulfill their ambitions. Therefore, martial artists can be considered to have developed in an all-round way. Martial artists can be seen in all aspects. Chu Yang nodded slowly. Although he didn't understand what Yun Tian's words had to do with coming to see him, he had to admit that this iron law of the martial world was extremely beneficial to preserving the bloodline of the martial world. It was just a fight between juniors. Even if they fought fiercely, so what? In the end, their foundation would not be damaged. And the basic principle of saving oneself and not hurting others also ensured that the two sides would not form a death grudge. It greatly reduced the possibility of revenge killings. If this cycle continued, the higher the level of the force, the lower the chances of forming a death grudge. You give me a head start. I also give you a head start. Naturally, it's good for you and good for me. And every time the ranking of the competition between the sects is decided, people from the younger generation will also be chosen to participate in the competition. Yun Tian's voice had a biting cold aura. Life and death, victory and defeat, it's all up to the heavens. If there are seniors who rashly interfere because of the fight between the juniors, causing huge casualties, then the sect that this person belongs to will definitely be punished by the entire world. There will be no exceptions. This is the iron law of the heavenly imperial court. Yun Tian raised his handsome eyebrows and said with a smile. Chu Yang said in a low voice, after hearing Brother Yun talk about the iron law of the heavenly imperial court, can I understand it as the lifeline of all the major sects in the world is actually in the hands of the juniors? Yes, that's right. Yun Tian praised. Brother Chu is indeed wise and able to infer many things from one example. The juniors. They are the key to the sects and the future of the sections. Chu Yang nodded. He expressed his understanding and agreement. So, from a certain perspective, this world is actually a stage for us youngsters to compete with each other. Yun Tian's voice was very heavy. The faces of Mo Lu and Zi Huang also appeared especially heavy. That was an unusually heavy sense of mission. Chu Yang's eyelids drooped slightly, but his heart also felt a layer of pressure from the bottom of his heart. Although Chu Yang did not think that he belonged to any force, his relationship with Xue Leihan was recognized by Chu Yang. So, Chu Yang had already subconsciously belonged to Xue Leihan's Eastern Royal Heaven. And after he came up, he landed in the Eastern Royal Heaven. This made Chu Yang even more unable to help but feel an inexplicable sense of belonging. But at this moment he personally experienced the heavy pressure on him. Other things aside, at least the extreme heavens, Green Cloud Heavens and Daluo Heavens already had leaders of the younger generation on the surface. No matter how much they schemed against each other in private, at least on the surface, they had already formed a unified command and an ironclad stance. On the other hand, the Eastern Royal Heaven was still in a state of disunity. At least, they did not have a qualified leader. If the so-called intersect competition were to be held now, or if the battle were to start directly, it would be strange if the Eastern Royal Heaven did not suffer a crushing defeat. As soon as I arrived here, I began to secretly investigate the leaders of the various sects and sects, as well as their outstanding disciples. It took me 2 days. Yun Tian revealed a unique and meaningful smile. His fair fingers tapped lightly on the table. But I unexpectedly discovered that, among the younger generation of the Eastern Royal Heaven, there is no place or person that I need to pay special attention to. We feel the same. Mo Lu smiled coldly and said lightly, "This is the Eastern Royal Heaven after all. They are the hosts." Zi Huang raised his eyebrows and smiled. "They are all a motley crew that can't withstand a single blow." Chu Yang's smile was still on his face, but his heart was a little stiff. But I didn't expect that outside of the Eastern Royal Heaven, there would be someone like Brother Chu, a young talent that appeared out of nowhere. Yun Tian smiled. And now, Brother Chu has already done something that no one in the younger generation of the Eastern Royal Heaven can do. That is, by chance, Brother Chu has already become the core of the Eastern Royal Heaven's power. P.S. Yesterday was autumn and I rested for a day. During the day, I sat on the top floor for the entire afternoon, thinking about the plot that I should write now. In the end, I decided that even if this path is difficult, I still have to continue writing it. As long as I can write it well, the Heaven Imperial Court will be much better than the lower three heavens. The conflict will also be much more intense. If I write it wrong and fail, I can only bear the most embarrassing situation. But no matter what, I still have to try, right? Life is unavoidable. I believe that after reading this book, my control over the plot will be improved to a whole new level. This is already enough. Moreover, regardless of whether it is easy or difficult to write, this is the path that I have chosen. As long as I dare to do anything, I have already succeeded by half. Everyone, please work with me to create the final legend of this book. I will do my best. I will go into seclusion from today onwards. Chapter 1851. The current situation is clear. No matter how much they reject you, if you're not here, they will be like a plate of loose sand. In the end, it's because of you that they can gather together to discuss matters. Yun Tian lifted his chin slightly and nodded in the direction of the Heavenly Armament Auction Hall. There was a look of disdain on his face. A look of disdain that came from the bottom of his heart. A lone man cannot form an army. A lone tree cannot form a forest. A smile appeared on the stranger's cold face. If we fight on our own, we will only be defeated one by one. That's right. Zi Huang held his teacup with a faint smile on his face. He blew on the tea and said casually, Brother Chu may not be able to truly develop, but as long as there is an improvement, the future of the world will be up to us to fight. As he said this, Yun Tian tilted his head slightly and smiled faintly. You two fight? The stranger looked at Zi Huang darkly and said sharply, You two fight. The two said the same 4 words. Their tones were different, but they were filled with a sense of coldness and desolation. Zi Huang laughed loudly. His handsome face was filled with madness. He was overjoyed. The two of you, can you do it? Are you worthy? Chu Yang realized that in that moment, the 3 of them, who were originally allies, had actually split into 3 parts. They were like fire and water that opposed each other. What's the use of arguing now? When we meet in the martial world in the future, we will naturally know who is the number 1 in the world. Yun Tian's face, which was as handsome as a woman's, flickered with a faint coldness. However, there was still an amiable smile on his face, as though spring had returned to the earth. Number 1 in the world. These 4 words caused the eyes of Stranger and Purple Emperor to suddenly burst with an abnormally bright light. Chu Yang's expression did not change. He smiled faintly and said, The 3 of you think too highly of me. Although I never belittle myself, but I'm still not from any sect. I don't have any conflict with the 3 of you. This number 1 in the world is too far away for me. I can't even see it, let alone reach it. Of course, you still don't belong to any sect, but you are still from the martial world. Yun Tian smiled softly. For every person that I think is a potential opponent, I will come to visit you. I'll come over to take a look and confirm. But this time, Brother Chu made me feel that this trip was not in vain. That would be a huge disadvantage. Stranger Lu smiled coldly and said, I feel the same way. When I heard about the auction, I felt that Brother Chu is a very strong opponent. When I heard that Brother Chu's auction house has become a gathering place, I was even more certain. So, I came to take a look. Now that I see it, it seems that Brother Chu is a very strong opponent. My previous judgment was not wrong, and I even slightly underestimated Brother Chu. The Purple Emperor opened a folding fan and gently waved it. My reason is the same as theirs. However, what I'm truly interested in is the endless mysteries on Brother Chu's body, as well as the endless stream of trump cards. As long as Brother Chu doesn't use all of his trump cards, it will be difficult to predict how far Brother Chu can go. He closed the folding fan with a snap. Then he said, I'm really interested in discovering more. If I can compete with Brother Chu in terms of wits and courage, and exchange moves in all aspects, it would be a joy in life. Does Brother Chu think so too? Having a good opponent in life may not be as easy as having a close friend. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. The 3 of you are too grand. I'm flattered and ashamed. Sigh, to be honest, our paths are different. Although we are all in the martial world, we can only be strangers in the end. The three of them smiled at the same time. Stranger Lu's chiseled face was smiling especially happily. Although we are destined to be strangers, we will definitely cross paths. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. He really couldn't understand why these three people would treat him as a great enemy after coming here. And it was even the kind of great enemy. It seemed that no matter how one looked at it, he shouldn't be considered a big deal right now. But at the same time, Chu Yang also felt a kind of excitement and caution in his heart. These three people are definitely not ordinary people. Because, with their status, to be able to recognize him as an opponent, just this vision alone was already very impressive. Brother Chu, put in more effort and speed up. In another 11 years, it will be the time for the rankings to be determined again. Yun Tian's eyebrows curved as he smiled. I hope that at that time, I can compete with Brother Chu for the world. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. I hope so. I can only say so. Sigh, I really don't have much confidence. Instead, I'm scared because of you guys. The three of them smiled at the same time. They could understand Chu Yang's reaction. I would have been terrified if I had been in Chu Yang's shoes. Moreover, I was being valued so highly by such an important person even though I was in his shoes. But they didn't expect that although Chu Yang said he was scared, in fact, he wasn't scared at all. Instead, he felt excited. You want to compete with me for number one in the world, but I want to test the sharpness of the heroes of the world. However, I have one thing that I don't understand. Or rather, I don't understand. Chu Yang said thoughtfully. Brother Chu, please speak. We will definitely tell you everything we know. The three of them spoke at the same time. The three of you have led the experts here this time. It must be for the relics of the infinite boundless mountain. Chu Yang said. But why is it that after arriving here, not a single one of you went to take a look? Why are all the sects holding back? The three of them laughed at the same time. Of course, there is a reason for this. Before we came, we had already looked through a large amount of information and found many things related to the soul-suppressing stone and the secrets hidden beneath it, as well as various ways to deal with the dangers that might exist. The reason why we chose not to move now is probably because the baleful Yin energy has yet to dissipate completely. Yun Tian smiled. Now, there is such an unparalleled divine sword blocking the baleful Yin energy beneath the soul-suppressing stone, at the same time also suppressing the divine souls of the tribulations below, causing the baleful Yin energy to dissipate slowly, ensuring that the divine souls of the tribulations cannot charge out. This is an extremely thorough method of dealing with things, and can even be said to be watertight. Therefore, the owner of this sword must be an earth-shattering senior expert. It is even more likely that only someone who has dealt with divine souls of the tribulations several times before would have such knowledge and methods. But it is precisely because of this that the process of dissipating the baleful Yin energy has become much longer. According to my estimations, this process will continue for at least a month's time before the accumulated baleful Yin energy will completely dissipate. Before the baleful Yin energy completely dissipates, the divine souls of the tribulations are basically invincible existences in the land of baleful Yin energy. No one dares to take the risk and enter, because as long as they are caught by the divine souls of the tribulations and brought into the land of baleful Yin energy, they will immediately become a zombie with twice the attack power of their previous life. And they are invulnerable to swords and blades, impervious to fire and water, extremely difficult to deal with. Yun Tian laughed softly. Therefore, before the baleful Yin energy completely dissipates, our people will definitely not enter, and no one will approach rashly. After all, no one wants to become a zombie. Although their strength can be doubled, they will still lose their lives. Yun Tian cracked a small joke. The three of them laughed at the same time, and within their laughter, there was mockery. Chu Yang said thoughtfully, "So that's how it is." Waving his fan, the Purple Emperor continued. Therefore, while Infinite Boundless Mountain is packed with people, there will definitely not be people from super sects staying there. Because such matters are only known to those sects who have participated in the destruction of the divine souls of the tribulations. And those sects who possess such information are all super sects, without exception. Ordinary sects would not know such secrets at all. Having just arrived at the imperial court, it is only natural that Brother Chu would not know such things. Actually, if not for the guidance of our masters and the large amounts of information we have gathered, we would also not know more than Brother Chu. Stranger concluded, in truth, while the appearance of the soul-suppressing stone is a great opportunity, it is also a great cleansing of the sects and experts of the pugilistic world. Using the divine souls of the tribulations and the baleful Yin energy to cleanse, it will not be as chaotic as before. It will also be more distinct. Pointing in the direction of infinite boundless mountain, he said mildly, those people who are still there now took part in the cleansing. Roughly estimating, the number of deaths and injuries has already exceeded 100,000. By the time this matter is over, the number of deaths in the eastern royal heavens will probably exceed 150,000. And these people are all experts in certain realms or regions. Speaking of the word, experts, Stranger's face was filled with mockery, and his laughter was filled with disdain. Chu Yang nodded heavily, saying again, so that's how it is. The soul-suppressing stone incident was an opportunity for the super sections. At the very least, they would not be harmed by it. However, for the ordinary sects and ordinary people of the pugilistic world, it was a disaster. As long as they were tempted, they would die. As long as they could not control their greed, it would be a disaster. But in this world, how many people could really control their greed? Brother Chu, apart from knowing you, we have also come to tell you something. Yun Tian smiled. What is it? Chu Yang asked. From the moment we met, we had already declared war. Yun Tian smiled slyly. Declared war? What do you mean? Chu Yang was a little confused. We have come this time to bring back the treasure, Yun Tian said, and the sects of the eastern royal heavens will definitely not let us take it away. They will definitely try to stop us. But now, they are just a pile of loose sand. Moreover, if they use the name of the younger generation to snatch it, we will definitely win. And Brother Chu, you will definitely not let us take the treasure away so easily. Therefore, Brother Chu, you will definitely take action. We have come to tell you these things so that you will have a good reason to act, but also to prevent you from playing any tricks behind our backs. Yun Tian smiled. When the younger generation of the Heaven Imperial Court declares war, they are not allowed to use the strength of the older generation. This is an iron law. No one can go against it, and no one dares to go against it. Chapter 1852. A smile appeared on the stranger's face. So, those mysteries behind Brother Chu, I'm afraid most of them won't be of any use. Update P. Zi Huang waved his fan confidently. Because when Brother Chu first came here, there's a saying, those who don't know are not guilty. If we didn't inform Brother Chu, and Brother Chu brazenly mobilized experts to create casualties, maybe we would really die unjustly? Even if Brother Chu goes to the netherworld with us, it's still useless to us. Realization dawned on Chu Yang. The other reason you're telling me these things is to add a shackle to my hands? Actually, it's the same for you. Zi Huang waved his fan, his face like a spring breeze. This shackle is not only for Brother Chu, everyone has it. Chu Yang laughed. Don't worry, the three of you. I didn't intend to participate in this matter in the first place. Besides, where did I get experts from? Times have changed. When the time comes, I'm afraid it won't be up to you, Brother Chu. Yun Tian's beautiful eyebrows twitched slightly. He said lightly, Brother Chu, it's always the times that create heroes, not heroes creating heroes. Chu Yang nodded seriously and said solemnly, well said. Now, the soul-suppressing stone incident is definitely not a small matter. Yun Tian said, the soul-suppressing stone incident appeared too cleverly this time. It appeared directly at a critical juncture. This is the times. Heaven's will. First, the sects hold a competition every 500 years. There are countless heroes who miss this competition because they are too old or not strong enough. When it comes to the next competition, they won't have a chance. Therefore, by chance, every 500 years, there will be superheroes who will seize the opportunity to appear. For example, tens of thousands of years ago, Chen Feng and Lu Yun participated because they represented the world. Their names shook the world, and they became powerful. Another example is the infinite invincible blade tens of thousands of years ago. It also happened to be at the right time and became famous in one battle. Are their cultivations really that unparalleled in the world? But those who lost to them back then all became the pillars of the major sects in the future. Some of them were even candidates for the position of sect leader. However, it's because of this. In the end, it created their peerless talents and immortal legends. Yun Tian raised his head indifferently and looked at Chu Yang. I know that even if I told others, Brother Chu wouldn't know. Therefore, I picked a few people that Brother Chu must be familiar with. After all, they all came from the same place, right? Chu Yang smiled bitterly and nodded. The pupils of Stranger and Violet Emperor contracted at the same time. The two of them and Yun Tian were each other's true enemies. However, Yun Tian's words showed his consideration. They didn't think of it. Unknowingly, he had already lost. Yun Tian's gaze unintentionally swept past Mo Lu and Zi Huang's faces. There was a deliberate complacency in his eyes. Their expressions changed. However, Yun Tian ignored him and continued speaking. Secondly, there will be another battle of destiny in the Heaven Imperial Court in 10 years or so. And our generation happened to be at the right time. Yun Tian raised his delicate chin. There's you, there's me, and there's Lord and I. They were all in the same age group. And it was precisely at this time that many unprecedented super geniuses appeared in the various large sects. Geniuses were appearing in large numbers. This was the general trend. Who can say that there is no heaven's will in the underworld? Why did it happen at this critical juncture? Why are there so many bright new stars appearing in large numbers? Before this, the martial world was also filled with shining stars. But who else can be like us? Yun Tian's words were filled with arrogance and conceit. It was as if he was looking down on the world. Thirdly, at such a crucial time, the various large sects should be preparing for war with all their might. However, the soul-suppressing stone appeared again. The soul-suppressing stone that hasn't appeared for more than 10,000 years. Once the soul-suppressing stone appeared, the entire world was shaken. Regardless of whether they wanted to come or not, they all had to come. This is another phase of the trend. We came here riding on the changes in the wind and clouds. But, Brother Chu, you are the heart of this place. Yun Tian smiled gently. Brother Chu, oh Brother Chu, how could we not notice you? We believe that the trend of the times creates heroes. However, the current trend of the times is mostly created by Brother Chu. It has changed because of you. Once the trend of the times rises and the general trend is irresistible, we will definitely walk on our own paths without regrets. As for you, Brother Chu, as long as you follow your heart, you will be able to lead the group and be pushed to the peak that you have never dreamed of before. There's another very important reason. That is, in such a competition that will decide the fate of the entire Heaven Imperial Court, all the participants must be well aware of the situation. If you win, you will be admired by the world. Even if you lose, it's because your skills are not as good as others. There's no reason for you to shirk your responsibility. It's natural for you to win. Even if you lose, you will accept it wholeheartedly. This is one of the important reasons why we came to find you today. Of course, if Brother Chu loses your life in this human world, it's only a normal thing. Yun Tian's mouth slowly revealed a smile. In Chu Yang's eyes, this smile actually had a hint of charm. Brother Yun has said so much. I am very honored. It's just that I still don't understand, Chu Yang said honestly. You will understand. The three of them smiled at the same time. Oh right, actually, there's another matter that we're here for. Yun Tian said, since Brother Chu has been entrusted here by an expert and has an official background of the Heaven Imperial Court, we naturally don't dare to be rash. We also don't dare to do anything to Brother Chu. However, at such a time, such an expert wouldn't be biased and only care about the Eastern Royal Heaven and ignore the other worlds. Because that would be unfair, isn't it? Yun Tian's gentle eyes suddenly shot out a sharp light. Therefore, I reckon that the item that the expert left for Brother Chu to auction isn't just that one. Brother Chu, you should have at least 40 to 50 items. Yun Tian pondered for a while and said these shocking words. Chu Yang's expression didn't change, but his heart was filled with shock. Chu Yang wasn't surprised by Yun Tian's sudden change in tone. The three people in front of him were all outstanding talents of their time. If they didn't even consider this point, they wouldn't be qualified to be Chu Yang's opponent. What really shocked Chu Yang was Yun Tian's tone. He used an affirmative tone at the end and didn't use a questioning tone. Although the result was the same, the confidence contained in it was shocking. He had actually determined the number of items in Chu Yang's hands. Indeed, Chu Yang didn't intend to only hold one high-level auction like this. As for the items to be auctioned, there were indeed dozens of them. According to the plan, he would hold a few more auctions while the heroes of the world were gathered. He would sell off the accumulated items in his hands and earn a huge amount of Purple Cloud coins. Then, he would buy the Purple Cloud mansion easily. If there were fewer items, Chu Yang wouldn't be able to gather such a huge amount of wealth. As long as he got the Purple Cloud mansion, he could use this mysterious treasure to unlock the secrets of the Calamity Sword, the great miracle medicine and the pagoda left behind by the Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor. If Chu Yang missed this opportunity, he wouldn't be able to gather tens of millions of Purple Cloud coins in less than half a year to buy the Purple Cloud mansion. If Chu Yang missed this opportunity, he might not be able to do it even if he was given another 10.5 years. This matter concerned Chu Yang's future. Chu Yang definitely wouldn't miss this opportunity. It was just that if he held another auction, Yun Tian and the others naturally wouldn't miss the opportunity to buy high-level items. And this was something that Chu Yang couldn't avoid no matter what. And the most important thing was that these were all his future opponents. He couldn't avoid them and had to face them. What would happen when those items were in their hands? What would happen? What would happen? What would happen? Would it become an opportunity that would affect the whole situation? No one could predict this point. But from this point, it was completely in line with Yun Tian's current expectations. It was almost exactly the same. And from a certain perspective, it was also the realization of the balance of the world. And it was actually in line with the current situation. Chu Yang was suddenly a little confused. What was going on? Could it be that in this world, there was really an invisible hand controlling everything? Only Chu Yang himself knew that the so-called mysterious expert, or person who controls the balance, didn't exist at all. But the others had already confirmed the existence of this person. If not for this, perhaps Chu Yang would have died 800 times already. He had treasures on him but didn't have the ability to protect them. How could he not deserve to die? If it wasn't for the existence of such an expert, perhaps Yun Tian and the other two wouldn't need to be so courteous with Chu Yang. An ant worthy of Earth-grade cultivation. Just a word or even a glance would be enough. So whether it was now or what Chu Yang was about to do, he was even more certain of the existence of that person. But Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. Mysterious expert, official background. We don't dare to do anything here. We also don't dare to do anything to Brother Chu. Yes, this sentence is very useful for me to use. Chu Yang pondered in his heart. However, his facial expression remained unchanged from the beginning to the end. He only displayed a surprised or somewhat absurd expression on his face. Just by looking at the expression on his face, it seemed that what Yun Tian said wasn't the truth. Yun Tian paused for a long time. Finally, he smiled and said, "Brother Chu, I wonder when your next auction will begin?" He was originally full of confidence. He had thrown out a series of heavy punches, each of them aimed at the vital points. Why didn't Chu Yang say anything? But at this moment, Chu Yang's expression was so rich that he really couldn't figure it out. For the first time, he was a little shaken in his own judgment. When this sentence was asked, even the hearts of Mo Lu and Zi Huang were a little shaken. Because the deeper meaning of this sentence was that the initiative had changed hands. Right now, the initiative was on Chu Yang's side. As long as Chu Yang didn't say anything, the truth couldn't be revealed and everything couldn't be carried out. At the same time, It proved another thing. The three of them didn't have any confidence at all. They couldn't be as sure as before. Chapter 1853. To be honest, I also don't know what that senior will do. Chu Yang smiled. Then he frowned and said, however, if that senior really intends to do so, he will definitely contact me again. If there's really another auction, I will definitely inform the three of you first. I can promise you that. Yun Tian stared intently into Chu Yang's eyes as Chu Yang spoke. However, there was only magnanimity in Chu Yang's eyes. Yun Tian, Stranger and Zi Huang used their secret techniques at the same time. However, when they reached Chu Yang's eyes, all their techniques melted like snow. They couldn't detect Chu Yang's true thoughts at all. Even Chu Yang's words, his pulse, heartbeat, breathing, expression, and eyes were all normal. There wasn't even the slightest fluctuation. Since that's the case, we will wait for Brother Chu's notice. Yun Tian looked at Chu Yang seriously for a long time before he said word by word. Stranger and Zi Huang nodded at the same time. The divine martial arts that these three people cultivated were all top-notch in the Heaven Imperial Court. Generally speaking, as long as one's cultivation was lower than theirs, one would be able to see through it at a glance. However, the Chu Yang in front of him was actually an exception. His cultivation was much lower than the three of them. However, the three of them couldn't see through him at all. This was the first time that such a situation had happened to the three of them. It was unprecedented. The three of them couldn't help but pay more attention to him. Chu Yang readily agreed to the three people's requests. The four of them chatted for a while more. Yun Tian and the rest stood up to leave. Chu Yang sent them off. The four of them were very happy. Just like good friends, they walked out and warmly bade each other farewell. At this point, the dozens of strong divine senses surrounding the Chu clan's courtyard disappeared silently. Then, Chu Yang returned to his study and sat in his original position. He frowned and pondered. What exactly is going on? The sword spirit wasn't by his side now, and Yen Russian wasn't around either. Chu Yang felt as if he had fallen into a fog over this sudden incident. He couldn't find any clues at all. However, there was one thing that he was certain of. None of the three people who came just now were simple. Any one of them was extremely terrifying. The three of them, and they were from different paths, appeared together just like that. Then they said a bunch of strange things to Chu Yang. Then they left again. What exactly is going on? What does it mean? Or does it mean that it means something? Chu Yang frowned and thought for a while. He muttered to himself, Yun Tian? Or the heaven of the extreme heaven? What kind of status does this Yun Tian have? Stranger. What a good stranger. Everyone in the world, regardless of whether they were friends or family, had their own path. Everyone was a stranger to everyone else. So, I'm a stranger, ha. Chu Yang muttered, that's right. Chu Yang Yutian a stranger? Yutian? Yutian Yotian. No, the Yutian that makes sense. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows and said softly, but, if I can compete with such opponents, it would be a great joy in my life. All along, Chu Yang's opponents were much older than him. Even Diwu Qingro from the lower three heavens was much older than him. As for Diwu Chochang from the upper three heavens, he was older than him by tens of thousands of years. Chu Yang had never met an opponent of the same age. He only had friends and brothers of the same age. It wasn't a pity, but it wasn't a bad thing either. Just think about it. If Mo Tianji, Gu Du Xing, Dong Wushang, and the others had all become Chu Yang's enemies, then it would have been hard to say whether Chu Yang would have been able to reach where he was today. In fact, Chu Yang didn't even need to become enemies with all of them. But right now, in this Heaven Imperial Court, he actually met three people of the same age at once. And each of them was scarier than the last. Each of them was only a few years older than Chu Yang. And in terms of background, they were all stronger than Chu Yang. They were even standing at the top of the world, while Chu Yang was still struggling at the bottom. But at this moment, Chu Yang's heart was filled with a fighting spirit that he had never felt before. Since they were opponents, let's bring it on. Chu Yang's sword-like eyebrows slowly rose. On the other side, after the three of them left, they walked for a long distance. They walked all the way out of the North City Gate before they slowly stopped. The other few people should have used up all their old enemies. Yun Tian smiled faintly. His voice was filled with mockery as he said, "They haven't discovered Chu Yang yet." Zi Huang and Mo Lu smiled at the same time. Their expressions relaxed. Yun Tian looked at the other two with a solemn face. After a long time he asked, "Your old enemies, how many more can light up?" Hearing the two words old enemies, Zi Huang and Zi Huang smiled bitterly. They looked at each other and were surprised by each other's bitter smiles. Then they felt relieved. "My last one. Today my YJ lit up and then dimmed." Zi Huang smiled. "Mine too. My last one lit up in the early hours of this morning. Now it's dimmed." Zi Huang smiled confidently. His handsome face was filled with indifference. Yun Tian said indifferently, "Fortunately, I still have one more. This time, I didn't use old enemies here." Zi Huang and Zi Huang's expressions changed at the same time. They looked at Yun Tian with fear and jealousy. The stranger coldly said, "Brother Yun's thoughts are meticulous. As expected, you are much more brilliant than this little brother." He turned around and left without saying another word. Zi Huang was silent for a while. Then he smiled confidently and said, "Brother Yun is very talented. If Brother Yun was a girl, I would definitely marry you at all costs. The feeling of crushing my life's biggest enemy under my crotch and ravaging him to my heart's content must be very satisfying. No, just thinking about it is satisfying." Yun Tian flew into a rage, his face as handsome as a woman's flushed red. He was so angry that he choked for a while. Then he gritted his teeth and scolded, "Bullshit. Don't fall into my hands in the future. Otherwise, I will find many people to play you to death." However, just as he was about to curse, the Purple Emperor turned around and left with a loud laugh. His figure was 1,000 feet away. It was as if he didn't hear Yun Tian's counterattack. He picked the words that Yun Tian didn't want to hear the most and angered him as he wished. Then he immediately slipped away. Because the two of them had used old enemies to find Chu Yang. But Yun Tian didn't use it. Perhaps he had already locked onto Chu Yang. Or perhaps he had used the two of them to lock onto Chu Yang. In any case, it was useless. No matter what the situation was. It meant that Yun Tian was more intelligent than the two of them. At least in this matter, the two of them were at a disadvantage. So, he had to anger Yun Tian to vent his anger. He got what he wanted. Yun Tian's face was red. He flicked his sleeves and left in anger. Old enemies. It wasn't a person. But it was definitely a person. And the old enemies that Yun Tian and the other two mentioned was a very special jade. Every 500 years, when the absolute leader of the young generation of a certain world stood out, a special jade pendant would be created by many elders of a few super sects in that world. These young leaders had an important mission, which was to defeat the geniuses of other worlds. But, in a world where the situation was completely clear, how could they determine who was their opponent? Then they would have to use old enemies. Every time they arrived at a new area, they could use their cultivation and primordial spirit to fight with the jade pendant of the old enemies. If the jade pendant lit up, it meant that there was an opponent here. If it wasn't their life's greatest enemy, the old enemies wouldn't have any effect. Every time they encountered such a situation, they could use their telepathy to find the other party. After finding the other party, the jade pendant would automatically extinguish and become useless. It couldn't be used again. Every old enemy's jade pendant could only guide its owner to one old enemy. If it didn't light up, it meant that it was at least one of their life's greatest enemies. This kind of thing was extremely mysterious, so mysterious that it couldn't be explained. But the price to pay to create this old enemy's jade pendant was very high. The elders who participated in the creation of the old enemies would never be able to use the power of their divine sense for the rest of their lives. They wouldn't even be able to use their own divine sense. This kind of price was simply too heavy for experts who were used to using their divine sense to detect everything. It was equivalent to becoming blind and deaf. But the old enemies allowed the geniuses that the world had placed their hopes on to seize the initiative in the face of their opponent. In this kind of invisible battle, seizing the initiative was equivalent to being in an invincible position. It was to stand out in the 500-year competition and bring great benefits and rewards to the sect and to the world of Tibet. So, even though the price was huge, it was still worth it. Because of the rarity of this item and the huge price to pay, every young leader would never have more than 3 pieces. If someone had or used more than 3 pieces of the old enemy's jade pendant, they would need to use 10 times the amount of divine sense to create a 4th piece. Even the Heavenly Sword Alliance couldn't afford such a loss. Because, even if they obtained the first place, it couldn't make up for such a huge loss. After Mo Lu and Zi Huang came here, they unintentionally used the old enemies and discovered Chu Yang's existence. Then, they came to find him, but Yun Tian didn't use it. But he still discovered Chu Yang's existence. This was the reason why Mo Lu was angry and why Zi Huang had to provoke Yun Tian to turn the tables. Of course, Chu Yang didn't know about these things. Yun Tian and the other 2 wouldn't say anything. Even if they did, no one would make such a huge sacrifice for Chu Yang to create an old enemy for him. Moreover, he was a super trash with a dantian. Chapter 1854. Even though no one could recognize Chu Yang's body constitution, the guidance of this enemy, who made such a huge sacrifice, was absolutely absolute. There was no mistake. By the time the distant stranger returned to his own camp, his angry expression had already disappeared. Those 2 enemies. Did you find them? The stranger asked softly. The air around him changed, and an old man appeared. We only found one. The stranger frowned. Where? What's his name? It's very strange. One of them seems to be able to avoid our detection. We can't find him at all. As for the second one, he's not from a sect. Instead, he's the leader of a group of robbers. The old man frowned. The leader of a group of robbers? How is that possible? The stranger frowned. Who was sent to investigate? This information is definitely reliable. The old man said, this person's surname is Tan. This person looks very strange. His temper is also very strange. He seems to be a bit crazy. Also, his methods are ruthless. I don't know which sect he's from. His organization is called Heavenly Armament Pavilion. There are 2 words that are similar to Chu Yang's Heavenly Armament Auction Hall. The stranger frowned deeply. Only this person is in our territory. The other one is at the border. We can't find him. The old man replied respectfully. Stranger looked up at the sky and muttered, Is this a coincidence? Then he asked, Which world did this person come from? I'm not sure. The old man smiled bitterly. This guy never cared about laws. He didn't even register. All of his wealth came from robbery and plunder. Also, his strength grew very fast. He's only in the Earth grade, but his escaping ability is superb. He has an enemy who invited a peak heaven grade expert to kill him, but he actually disappeared without a trace. What an interesting person. The stranger's face darkened and he said lightly, Send the order back. Investigate thoroughly. The old man bowed and replied. Mo Lu's face darkened. Suddenly he sighed and said, This is really not the right time. The soul-suppressing stone incident just had to happen at a time like this. If not, I could have played with this Tan guy to my heart's content. What a pity. When I go back, I'm afraid it'll be another scene. The old man said, This can't be? After all, we can't stay here for long. At most half a year, we can return. Half a year. That's enough to turn the world upside down. The stranger exhaled. The enemy's opponent can't be judged by common sense. No matter what kind of improvement and changes there are, it's all understandable. He frowned. When I go back, I'll be dealt with. That's the Tan guy. On the other side, the Purple Emperor was also worried about the same problem. Bandits? How could they be robbers and not people from super sects? Where did this Dong Wuxiang come from? Heavenly Armament Pavilion. What was the relationship between Heavenly Armament Pavilion and Heavenly Armament Auction Hall? No. In this world, there are too many people who call themselves Heavenly Soldiers. Zi Huangxin sneered. Heavenly Soldiers? Heavenly Tian Tian? Tian Tian, a Heavenly Heavens. Dong Wuxiang was the enemy that the Purple Emperor found in Daluo Heaven. Just as he found out, the soul-suppressing stone incident broke out. He didn't have time to understand. But Dong Wuxiang's name became a thorn in the Purple Emperor's heart. It made him uncomfortable to the extreme. The Purple Emperor's heart was hazy. Enemies usually came from other worlds. Why did this Dong Wuxiang come from my side? Why did he appear in my original world? In Daluo Heaven with me? What was going on? Enemies existed in the same world. Did it mean that my position was unstable? Because this was an extremely embarrassing matter, the Purple Emperor naturally wouldn't mention it. He couldn't wait to keep it a secret. If Yun Tian and the stranger knew, wouldn't they laugh at him? On the other side, the stranger. He also wouldn't mention it for the same reason. So, this matter. Just like that, they were separated by a strange combination of factors. If the Purple Emperor and the stranger could talk openly, they would find out that the people they were most worried about were actually the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. They were all bandit organizations. But the two of them would never really talk to each other. It was the same with the others. Because they were natural enemies. However, although no one mentioned this matter, everyone had guesses in their hearts. Such a person appeared on my side. Did they have such a person? If so, then it would really be exciting. It wasn't just the Purple Emperor and the stranger who were worried about this. The other young leaders of the other worlds were also frowning. This matter was really strange. The enemy had been in their hands for a long time. Every once in a while, everyone would use their cultivation to test it. Because if there wasn't such a person, the enemy wouldn't react, and there was no need to worry about wasting. For a few years before this, the enemy hadn't lit up, so everyone was at ease. But this year, without exception, all of them lit up, and the enemies they guided were almost none of the super sects. This matter gave every young leader a headache. Of course, they didn't know that this kind of situation also happened in other worlds. But everyone was secretly sullen and depressed. They were using all kinds of methods to suppress, restrain, or eradicate it, but at present, the effect wasn't very good. After sending the three of them off, Chu Yang sat in the study for a while and then walked out. He met Huyan Aobo walking over majestically. Big brother Chu, how's the effect of my time here? Not bad, right? It's quite good. Chu Yang praised sincerely. Huyan Aobo was in charge of external matters. Although she dealt with all matters, no matter big or small, it was also watertight. Huyan Aobo grinned. Just as she was about to leave, she turned back. Last night, I dreamt of GMO again. That bastard was howling. He's not Luo Kadi. Why is he pretending to be a beast? It's really infuriating. Chu Yang laughed loudly. Seeing Huyan Aobo walk away, Chu Yang's expression became a little ugly. They were too far apart, too long. Brothers. Even Huyan Aobo, who had such a carefree personality, dreamt of GMO. Then what about Xie Danfeng? Gu Miaoling? Ao Shiyun's wife and Xie Danqiong's wife? How were those weak girls going to bear all of this? In this heaven imperial court where danger lurks at every step. In this stormy pugilistic world where human lives are as cheap as grass. I can protect them, I can guarantee that they won't be hurt. But how can I comfort their hearts that are worried for their loved ones? Chu Yang closed his eyes. Then he looked up to the sky and took a deep breath. Then he walked into the big courtyard. Madame Mei, Xie Danqiong's wife, was busy inside. She looked at the group of children playing in front of her quietly. Sister-in-law. Chu Yang walked over. Big brother. Madame Mei stood up gracefully. I made some cards. Help me distribute them later. Chu Yang said, Oh yes, I need the name list of these children. I have ready-made ones here. I'll give them to you later. Madame Mei said quietly. After a moment of silence, she finally asked, Big brother, is there any news of Xie Danqiong? Chu Yang's face twitched a little. He said, "Sister-in-law, relax. Although there is no specific news for now, how many days have we been here? The time is too short. Moreover, the Heaven Imperial Court is vast and there are many restrictions. Xie Danqiong definitely needs to increase his strength to break through the restrictions and meet up with us." "Yes, I understand." Madame Mei responded weakly. She said, "I'm actually not very worried. It's just that I've been dreaming these few days that Xie Danqiong is covered in blood. I'm a little scared of myself." Chu Yang's heart sank. He said, "Don't worry. We've ascended higher than others. Moreover, Xie Danqiong's viburnum flower is a super killer weapon no matter where. Xie Danqiong is smart and alert. Moreover, even if there's any danger, Xie Danqiong still has the 2 heavy elixirs that I gave him, which can bring him back to life. There are also 4 incomplete versions of the heavy elixirs that can heal any injuries instantly. I believe that he'll be fine." Madame Mei's expression relaxed a lot. "I always like to let my imagination run wild." Chu Yang said gently, "What you think about in the day, you'll definitely dream about it at night. Sister-in-law, you can try to think about it. Xie Danqiong is in high spirits now. You'll feel much better." "Yes, ha." Madame Mei laughed. Madame Mei's mood improved, but Chu Yang's mood became heavier. There was a saying that a husband and wife's hearts were connected. There were many mysterious things that couldn't be explained by normal logic. Why did Madame Mei suddenly dream of Xie Danqiong being bathed in blood? Could it be that Xie Danqiong had encountered some danger? After a long time, Chu Yang stood in the courtyard. Hundreds of children around him were looking at him with sparkling eyes. They were full of trust and reverence. "Children, I'm going to give everyone a small gift today. There's one for each of you." Chu Yang smiled. "What gift? Will it be fun? What exactly is it? Could it be a super big steamed bun?" A skinny little girl put her finger in her mouth, full of hope. What's so rare about a big steamed bun? I'm guessing it's a big meat bun." Another little guy said happily, "Maybe it's a big piece of fat meat." As he said, saliva flowed out of his mouth. Chu Yang laughed. These little guys were really afraid of starvation in the past. Now that there's something good, they want to eat. It's just that their requirements seem too low. Chapter 1855. Yes. All the children's eyes lit up at the same time as they answered in unison. "Yes, what I'm giving to everyone today are your exclusive heavenly soldier tokens." Chu Yang waved his hand and a large stack of thin metal tokens appeared in his hand. Each token was only the size of 2 copper coins. They were shiny and oval-shaped. The design was unique and beautiful. There were 2 big words in the middle, "Heavenly Soldiers." Then at the bottom are the names of each child. Novel chapters are updated the fastest. You must carry this token with you from now on. Do not let it leave your body for even a moment. When you grow up, no matter where you are, don't forget that this is your eternal home. You will always be the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals of our heavenly armament pavilion. Chu Yang's voice was filled with deep emotions. If there was a chance, he would not be willing to give away so many obedient children. But now, he could not afford it at all. Every time he thought of this matter, although it was irresistible, he had to do it. Furthermore, it was for the long term. Even so, Chu Yang still felt heartache. But he suppressed the heartache deep in his heart. The smile on his face was still bright and warm. Good. The children immediately became excited. Each of them looked at the tokens eagerly. They could not wait to hold it in their hands. "Now, whoever I call, come forward to receive your token." Chu Yang waved his hand. "From now on, you can be proud as much as you want. Because you are worthy of the title of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. Even if you are still young now, you will definitely be in the future." "We will definitely be." All of the children screamed with all their might, each of their small faces. Their faces were flushed with excitement. "Chu Infeng. Here. Chu Jinfeng. Here. Chu Rofeng. Here. Chu Yang read out the names one by one as he looked deeply at each child who came forward to receive their tokens. He wanted to remember each person's characteristics and appearance. He wanted to remember them deeply in his heart and imprint them in his heart. Once they were separated, they would be separated for a long time. Even if there was a day when they would meet again, it would definitely be a long, long time in the future. I hope that everyone will remember your home, your brothers, and your sisters. Chu Yang said deeply, this is the beauty that each of us needs to protect with our lives. The children's eyes sparkled. They looked at Chu Yang. The whole place was silent. From today onwards, every meal must have fish and meat. There were big steamed buns and big meat buns. There must be no less than 10 dishes on each table for every meal. Chu Yang took a deep breath. Then, he turned his head and instructed. Inform Aobua and Miao Ling to hurry up with their purchases. Make new clothes for each child. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter clothes. Do one thing each. 10 years of preparation in one go. Pay attention to the changes in your body size as you grow. In the 10th year, the children are almost grown up. Make 10 pieces of clothing for each season. Chu Yang said softly. Also, make a longevity lock for each child. Make a pure gold hairpin for each girl. Prepare a box for everyone. Make sure you can put everything inside. If all of these were added up, it would undoubtedly be an unusually huge expenditure. But Chu Yang couldn't bear to do that. Then he gave the order. Madame may seem to realize this, and tears quickly welled up in her eyes. The children below were still carefree. They were all laughing and looking at the heavenly soldier plate that ZJ had just received as if it was a treasure. Their young voices were repeating ZJ's name word by word. Some of the little girls began to use silk threads to carefully thread the plate and hung it around ZJ's neck. From time to time, they would take it out to take a look. Their young faces were all smiles. Chu Yang's heart couldn't help but ache. If I wasn't so weak now, if I had enough strength now, he looked up to the sky and sighed. It seemed to come from the bottom of ZJ's heart. Even ZJ's heart was trembling when he sighed. Just as Yun Tian and the others came to look for Chu Yang, another group of people also came to the entrance of the Heavenly Soldier Auction Hall. Shui Xian, who had the highest cultivation in the Heavenly Soldier Hall, was the first to be alert. She said, "Our old rivals are here." Hai Lianbo was stunned. Then he also noticed the arrival of the uninvited guests. His face couldn't help but darken. He said, "Old friends, since you're here, why don't you come in and sit?" As soon as he finished speaking, an indescribably gloomy and uncomfortable aura appeared. A sinister voice suddenly sounded. "You all still have the mood to study and snatch treasures here? Aren't you all about to burn your buttocks? I really admire you Eastern Royal Heavens people. You really can keep your composure. Aren't you afraid of losing face for His Majesty Eastern Royal Heavens?" Shui Xian raised her eyebrows. She said in a low voice, "Old Baldy, where are you talking nonsense?" "Ha!" Following the laughter, a burly bald man walked in. He looked to be only 40 or 50 years old. But everyone sucked in a breath. This guy was one of Stupa Heaven's great killing gods. Stupa Heaven's Stupa Pavilion Elder, Wu Zhangxiu. His nickname was Zhangxiu. From this nickname, one could see how heavy his killing nature was. Stupa Pavilion was ranked 5th among the super sects in the Heavenly Imperial Court. The black-clothed man at his side was the Big Western Skies Saber and Sword Alliance Elder, Dao Changshao. Saber and Sword Alliance was ranked 11th among the super sects in the Heavenly Imperial Court. "Old Baldy, what did you mean by what you said before?" Shui Xian's gaze was like ice and snow. Towards these two people, she didn't have the slightest bit of good impression. She always greeted them with a fight when they met. Originally, at their status level, if it wasn't necessary, they would rarely fight. But Shui Xian and these two people's relationship was really very deep, especially Wu Zhangxiu. Ever since Wu Zhangxiu saw Shui Xian for the first time, he was immediately infatuated. Several years ago, this Wu Zhangxiu actually personally rushed to dreamlike secular pavilion. to ask for Xue Xian's hand in marriage. Afterwards, he was ruthlessly fixed up by Xue Xian, beaten half to death, and then thrown back. If this matter ended here, it was probably just a joke about a failed marriage proposal and then being beaten up, that's all. But she also didn't know what this Wu Zhangxiu was thinking. Afterwards, he unexpectedly sent someone to ask for her hand in marriage every 10 years. In terms of their age, for so many years, Xue Xian had only rejected this person's marriage proposal. She had rejected him countless times, at least a few thousand times. She couldn't stop him. Being pursued, to be honest, wasn't a shameful thing. But being pursued like this was extremely depressing, and it had to happen again and again. Again and again, even 1,000 and 2,000, 2,000 and 3,000 pursuits, no one could stand it. It was really annoying. Besides, because of this joke became a popular joke among the older generation. As the saying goes, a strong woman is afraid of a pestering man. But Wu Zhangxiu, this pestering man, had reached the peak of perfection, while Xue Xian, this strong woman, was still indifferent. She was even furious. So whenever Xue Xian saw this baldy, anger would rise from the bottom of her heart, and she would have to put down her thoughts to fight. Today, she barely restrained herself from directly attacking. She restrained herself as much as she could. Don't misunderstand, I don't mean anything else. I'm just saying. Wu Zhangxiu used his hand to scratch his bald head and was actually a little embarrassed. Even the gloomy voice from before had now become stuttering. Hai Xiaobo laughed in his heart. This was really one thing to conquer another. Dao Changxiao's sharp face revealed a rare smile and said, "Everyone, we're really not here to fight. The main thing is that we have to discuss something." Xue Xian's expression was cold as she asked, "What is it?" "The 500 years competition is about to begin. This is considered a big matter, right?" Dao Changxiao's expression was serious. 500 years competition? Xue Xian was angry, but she almost couldn't help but laugh out loud. "It is indeed a big matter, but do you still need to say it? There are still 51 years. The 500 years competition is about to begin. Who doesn't know about this matter?" Dao Changxiao coldly spat out a word. "It's not 51 years, it's only 11 years. Nonsense." Xue Xian frowned. "Dao Changxiao, have you become muddle-headed? The 500 years competition last time, we were all present. How can you remember this wrong?" Hai Xiaobo nodded. "That's right. According to the martial arts competition of the past, there are still 51 years left until the 500-year period. It's just that things have changed now. The competition has been brought forward." Dao Changxiao sighed. "We can only wait for the next 11 years. Seeing that his expression didn't seem to be fake, Xue Xian's expression slowly became serious. "Are you serious?" "That is indeed the case." Wu Zhangxiu rubbed his bald head and smiled, then moved closer to Xue Xian and said, "Anything that Xue Xian wants to know, as long as I know, I will definitely tell you everything. Let me sit down first. I will definitely tell Xue Xian everything. Go away." Xue Xian screamed, "Don't sit next to me. Go away." "I won't sit next to you, okay?" Wu Zhangxiu lowered his head and sat far away, stretching his neck and trying to please Xue Xian. "Xue Xian, please don't be angry. You won't be pretty when you are angry. My love for you is real." Xue Xian clenched her fists and was about to stand up, but she forced herself to stop halfway. She took a deep breath, but still couldn't suppress her anger. She looked at Dao Changxiao with sharp eyes. "Go on. What is going on? Why is the competition brought forward? I didn't even know about it." Dao Changxiao was startled. "What the hell?" Xue Xian exploded. "Are you deaf? Hurry up and say it." Dao Changxiao felt wronged. "What does it have to do with me when you two quarrel? Why do I have to be the punching bag? But my fist is not as hard as this woman's, so I can only swallow my anger." Chapter 1856. The two of them had nothing to do, so they chatted for a while. They enjoyed the rare time for just the two of them, chatting in an elegant environment. Naturally, it was very pleasant. However, good times were only short-lived. The two of them only enjoyed the peaceful time of a meal before Tai Budian had to go back. There was no other way. She was needed there. In the Chu clan courtyard, Tai Budian was the busiest person. Chu Yang, who used to be the busiest person, was not even in the top 5 now. Huyan Aobua, Xie Danfeng and the others were busier than him. And the second was Duan Songkong. With a good butler like Duan Songkong, how could Chu Yang not make good use of him? If it was still like before, where Chu Yang had to deal with everything, how could Chu Yang have the time to cultivate and improve his cultivation? Chu Yang, who was enjoying a rare moment of peace, naturally didn't know that a major event that could affect the future of the entire Heaven Palace had just happened here. He was still wondering, could it be that those bastards felt embarrassed after breaking my room, so they sneaked away? Otherwise, why can't I see anyone? This is really strange. Could it be that those people are actually embarrassed? If they were really embarrassed, why didn't they leave 1,000,000 purple cloud coins for me to repair my room? Forget it, it's just a small amount of money. I don't care about it. It's good that they're gone. My ears can finally be completely quiet. Seeing that the sky was getting dark, Chu Yang prepared to go back to meditate and cultivate. The sword spirit had been transferring a large amount of death energy back and forth several times a day in the past few days. Chu Yang's death energy dantian had already been filled to the brim. If not for the fact that a part of his death energy was gradually transforming into vitality, and the speed was getting faster and faster, he was really afraid that there was no place to accommodate the death energy. Death energy was something that could weaken all things. Even the tribulation space could only accommodate it temporarily. It could not hold it for a long time. Otherwise, it would be eroded. Chu Yang's current so-called cultivation was, to a large extent, a continuous process of transformation, and retransformation. Just as he was about to leave and return to the secret room to continue his cultivation, he suddenly felt a strange sensation. Suddenly, he felt an inexplicable movement in his dantian. There was actually an extremely rich water spirit qi permeating the air. In fact, Chu Yang was wantonly absorbing the death energy and converting it into life energy. Other than that, the other 7 dantians were also accumulating energy of various attributes bit by bit. However, compared to the death energy that could be absorbed almost infinitely and quickly, the difference was like heaven and earth. Even if the conversion speed of life energy was getting faster and faster, the difference was still like heaven and earth. However, it was not without growth. It was just that the rate of growth was relatively slow. It was precisely because the growth of other energies was relatively slow. Chu Yang was naturally very sensitive to other types of energy. So, he couldn't help but be shocked when he suddenly sensed the sudden surge of water vapor energy. He turned his head and stared blankly at the sparkling water column in front of him. This water actually contained such a dense amount of water spirit qi? Chu Yang couldn't think of this at all. A fountain that suddenly appeared in his living room actually contained such a dense amount of water spirit energy. Although he didn't understand what was going on, he still immediately sat down. If he returned to the secret room to cultivate, he might miss the opportunity to obtain the water spirit qi. Although cultivating on the spot would be a little risky, the benefits would be considerable. He immediately made a decision. Under this dome-like water curtain, he sat cross-legged and wholeheartedly operated the heaven-splitting divine technique. Since there was such a surging amount of water spirit qi here, why would he care so much? Let's absorb it first. The heaven-splitting divine technique was fully activated. As he operated the technique, Chu Yang immediately discovered a difference. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth, at this moment, actually surged like a tide. And the water spirit qi of the heaven-splitting divine technique in his body was also increasing at an astonishing speed several times faster than usual. Moreover, the extent was faintly increasing. Chu Yang didn't know that this was probably an unexpected but reasonable coincidence. Moreover, it was a coincidence that very few people other than Chu Yang could make use of. Previously, when Xue Xian was angry and embarrassed, she slapped Wu Zhangxiu down. That slap was at least 50% of her true power. The strength of the slap was so strong that it directly slapped Wu Zhangxiu down into the underground water. And in order to not lose face, Wu Zhangxiu used his own divine technique to protect himself. Coincidentally, he further compressed the underground water to that place. When he came out, in order to show off his handsome figure, he even made this passageway as strong as steel. The final result was an ordinary-looking fountain, but in fact, it was very unusual. And under such strong compression, it caused the geocentric water spirit qi to produce a phenomenon of reverse flow. And Chu Yang built a pavilion out of romantic feelings. He even added a large metal plate on top of it. This further formed a reflecting dome. With such a few coincidences superimposed, it was in line with a certain formation. Strictly speaking, this kind of formation was very far away. However, in terms of the Earth's core water spiritual energy, it had to gather at this place after it rushed out. At least for the next few days, the water spiritual energy here was much denser than in other places. And at this moment, Chu Yang's mind was blessed as he sat down and operated his martial technique. This led to the geocentric water spirit qi, other than the initial little bit, not going to waste at all. It was all used by him as a great supplement. Between heaven and earth, because of this strange change, the spiritual energy slowly surged. Chu Yang could clearly feel that his water dantian was beginning to increase its spiritual energy little by little. With a turn of his mind, the great miracle medicine instantly appeared in the tribulation space. The water spirit qi of the spring of life also surged out. The medicinal efficacy of the elixir gardens surged into the dantian like a tsunami. The primordial purple vapor in the tribulation space also began to move, rushing into Chu Yang's meridians. Chu Yang only felt that his body and mind were in perfect condition. The large amount of death spirit qi that the sword spirit had painstakingly transported, which was so huge that it couldn't be absorbed in time, was actually being absorbed, transformed, and poured into the life dantian at an astonishing speed visible to the naked eye. This was completely out of Chu Yang's expectations. Today, he coincidentally obtained a large amount of water spirit qi, and even accidentally activated a secret of the life and death dantian. In fact, the gradual transformation of the death spirit qi into the life spirit qi was not accidental. When the dantian of death was completely filled, things would move in the opposite direction when they reached an extreme. The extreme of death would give birth to life, but the transformation speed was not very fast. However, at this moment, because of the unexpected water spiritual qi, the spring of life, great spiritual herbs, primordial violet qi, and other miraculous treasures were stimulated, causing the transformation of the spiritual qi of life to accelerate. A large amount of spiritual qi of death was transformed into spiritual qi of life until the two were roughly equal. In other words, his death spirit qi had shrunk from its full state to a little more than 50%. However, his life dantian was already 50% filled with life spirit qi, and it was still slowly increasing. In terms of quantity, life energy had increased tremendously, while death energy had decreased correspondingly. It seemed to have no practical significance, but in fact, this transformation had far-reaching implications. In the future, regardless of whether there is an excess of life qi or death qi, they could all be transformed into each other. This state was the so-called unity of life and death, the fusion of yin and yang. Also, the infinite boundless mountain and the soul-suppressing stone still had large amounts of death spirit qi. He could definitely absorb and convert the energy without any hindrance. With the method of transforming spiritual qi of life and death, he could go a step further and wantonly consume it. At this moment, Chu Yang only felt as if his entire body was light as a feather, as if he had floated up into the clouds. And it was in such a miraculous state that he entered into a state where he forgot about everything around him. He did not sense in the slightest that the spiritual energy in the air above him had already undergone an exceptionally huge change. The purest portion of the various spiritual energies that filled the space between the heavens and the earth had quietly disappeared, and this area was still gradually expanding. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the the surrounding 1,000 kilometers had already been enveloped within. Outside the city, several old men who had been meditating in their respective tents were startled, rushing outside with a whoosh sound. Then, their figures flashed as they all flew into the air, observing carefully. Raising their heads to look at the situation in the sky, all of them had solemn expressions on their faces. "Have you all sensed it?" a white-clothed old man asked softly. However, the surrounding old men all nodded in unison, sighing, "We can no longer cultivate here, unless we walk out of this area." "That's right." A black-clothed old man's white beard fluttered in the wind. His eyes were filled with dread and envy as he slowly said, "This area is about 1,200 kilometers in radius. Although the spiritual energy still exists, the most essential part has already been lost. Moreover, no matter how we cultivate, we can't seize it or even intercept a single drop." Another white-browed old man closed his eyes and carefully sensed. Then he shook his head disappointedly. "This is still nothing. What's truly frightening is that I can't find out where the missing part of the pure spiritual energy has gone." A group of old men snorted. "It's already specially absorbing the pure spiritual energy. How can it be detected by you? Elder Mu, you're the one with the best eyesight, experience, and knowledge in this group of people. Do you know what kind of technique this is? How can it be so overbearing?" An old man asked. "I really don't know." This white-browed Elder Mu pondered and said, "However, I've heard that Emperor One, Queen, and Holy Monarch all have similar techniques. And our current level is still far from that level. It's really unfathomable." Everyone had a bitter smile on their faces as they were shocked once again. Emperor One, Queen, and Holy Monarch. It referred to 11 people. They were also the 11 most powerful people in the Heavenly Imperial Court. Emperor, it referred to the Emperor of the Great Heavenly Imperial Court. Queen One, it was Demon Emperor Heaven and Demon Empress. As for Holy Monarch, it was naturally Lord Saint of the Heavenly Imperial Court. As for whether other people have such techniques, I really don't know. Everyone only knows that the first 5 sect masters should know a little about it. A few old ancestors should have stepped into this category. Also, under Holy Monarch and Emperor One, there should also be experts who have stepped into this realm. Although these people still have an insurmountable gap with Emperor One and Queen, they can more or less be controlled within a small range. However, compared to this person in front of us, I'm afraid they're still slightly inferior. Chapter 1857. The old man with white eyebrows took a deep breath. Based on my personal judgment, the person here shouldn't be at the level of DE or Empress. Then, could he be the mysterious guest from the strange auction some time ago? Speaking of this, everyone's face became a little gloomy. From P. That mysterious guest had good things, but he obviously gave them to the people of Donghuang Heaven. They came 2 days late and didn't even get to drink anything. Naturally, they felt uncomfortable. Facing such a terrifying existence that they could only look up to, everyone's heart was heavy. Although they all had their own thoughts, no one dared to really search for anything. What was the difference between rashly acting at this time and seeking death? Normally, the purpose of cultivation was to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to strengthen oneself. But there were also impurities in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After absorbing it, one would use one's meridians as a channel and one's dantian as a purifier to refine and purify it over and over again. In the end, it would become a power that completely belonged to oneself. In other words, it was the purest and most refined spiritual energy. But now, this person directly ignored this process and directly absorbed the most refined spiritual energy from heaven and earth. After this, although the spiritual energy in the sky was still dense, the most refined part was already gone. In other words, no matter how hard one worked, even if one absorbed all the spiritual energy of heaven and earth here, in the end, it would be equivalent to wasting one's efforts. Cultivating in the same place as such an existence was simply a great tragedy. And this was also the main reason why such a powerful existence could easily dominate an area. Who would be willing to share with others? If one couldn't afford to offend him, would one stay here and look for trouble? But now, these people here couldn't leave. Because the secret of the soul-suppressing stone here hadn't been revealed yet. Even if they couldn't cultivate here, they couldn't leave. Therefore, everyone's face was as ugly as if they had eaten feces, where the soul-suppressing stone was originally. Once it was opened, the spiritual energy would definitely be so dense that it would cover the sky and earth. This kind of spiritual energy would definitely be a thorough cleansing of everyone's meridians. It would make a qualitative change in everyone. An astonishing improvement. That was probably the reason why everyone had come here. But now, with the existence of this terrifying person, it was as if everyone had come out for a vacation. Other than paying for the travel expenses, they could only enjoy the scenery. Not only did he waste time cultivating at home, he even had to risk losing his life. The group of elders once again sighed in unison and returned to their seats. They only felt somewhat depressed and stifled. She had never seen such a shameless old man. Wasn't this too degrading? For a mere soul-suppressing stone, it's still acceptable for people of our level to participate, but do you have the nerve to make a move? Was it worth the ticket price? Furthermore, he's still here and won't fucking leave? This seemed to be a treasure left behind by their predecessors for their descendants. But now, there was such a terrifying person holding the fort. Could it be that this old man was someone from before? Who knows? Very likely. What should he do? None of us seem to be able to do anything. One by one, they sighed. It turns out that we have traveled more than 100,000 miles. Just to be humiliated here? The old men were all extremely unhappy. Of course. Even if they were unhappy, they could only grumble in their hearts. Not to mention doing anything, they didn't even dare to voice out their displeasure. Even their expressions were basically the same as usual. They really didn't dare to show too much abnormality. Perhaps their current appearance was within the range of the other party's divine sense. As long as the other party was unhappy, they would probably lose their lives here. As for why they had such an understanding, the reason was actually very simple. It was because they had done similar things before. They were basically all old monsters who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Although they didn't do things like robbing, they had still done things like that. As for those who didn't agree with their way of doing things, most of them would punish them. If one of them didn't stop, killing one or two of them was really not a big deal. Perhaps this was another kind of people of the same mind, and their hearts share the same principle. Although the old men were worried, the younger generation was already in full swing. They were obviously very excited. Yun Tian seemed to have drunk some wine and was a little high. His handsome face was flushed red. He suddenly clapped his hands and recited loudly, "The Sky Sword Alliance produces outstanding talents, moving unhindered in the extreme heaven. They laugh at the winds and clouds and settle business, yet they ask if the southern sky is coming?" When this sentence came out, besides being arrogant and conceited, there was also a hint of disdain and disdain for all living things. The face of a young man in the South Pole camp instantly turned gloomy. He laughed and said, "The southern wind moves the earth, blowing away the clouds in the sky. Brother Yun, why, are you going to fire at us southern sky first?" Yun Tian laughed loudly, showing a non-committal attitude. On the other side, the eyes of a stranger moved and said, "There is a ghost region in hell. When strangers meet, they draw their swords." The meaning of tit for tat in his words was completely undisguised. In Mo Yuntian's camp, a young man in black had a sinister smile on his face. He said indifferently, "If there is no ghost region, how can there be hell? Strangers on different paths lead to the same destination. You and I are strangers on different paths. We are strangers on different paths." The stranger also said indifferently, "I only know that strangers on different paths lead to different paths." Then, the two of them laughed together. One laughed sinisterly while the other laughed like a ghost. Everyone at the side couldn't help but have goosebumps all over their bodies. One of them was in the underworld sect while the other was in the ghost region. They both belonged to the top 10 super sects in the Heaven Imperial Court. The Underworld sect was ranked first while the Ghost region was ranked first. The cultivation methods of these two sects were very similar. It could be said that they were on the same path. The words of the two of them were also full of spears and sticks, competing with each other. On the other side, Zi Huang stood up confidently and waved his folding fan twice. He shouted, with a sword, "When Xian is ethereal, one can move unhindered in Daluo heaven. Today, looking to the extreme north, I am free and unfettered." A sharp voice said, "What? You know that you can't afford to offend the dreamlike veranda of Eastern Royal Heaven, so you came to find me? Do you really think I'm a pushover?" From Qi Bei Tian's camp, a blue-clothed figure slowly walked out and shouted, "Zi Huang, is your heart-seeking sword pavilion going to fight my howling sky pavilion?" To be honest, Zi Huang was also depressed by this straightforward question. His biggest opponent, or even the heart-seeking sword pavilion's biggest opponent, had always been the dreamlike veranda of Eastern Royal Heaven. However, this time, the Eastern Royal Heaven didn't send anyone at all. A competition needed an opponent. If there was only one person, it was just pretending to be a fool. Under the circumstances, he had no choice but to use Qi Bei Tian to establish his prestige. Even he himself felt that he seemed to be a little weak. On this side, the young people of the two realms were fighting with each other. They were all hot-blooded young people who were destined to be enemies. No one was willing to give in. The battle of words was instantly set off, and the smell of gunpowder was very strong. Everyone would pay attention to each other's words, demeanor, and try their best to remember each other's words. They wouldn't even let go of each other's expressions when they said these words. In this way, they could guess the opponent's temperament and analyze the opponent's weakness. On the surface, they were all ready to fight, but in fact, each of them had their own thoughts. A group of old fellows narrowed their eyes and looked at the young people making a ruckus over there. Occasionally, they would turn to look at the infinite boundless mountain, and then turn to look at Purple Cloud City. Their eyes were full of wonder. At this moment, a gust of wind blew, and a pleasant voice said, "Oh, a group of people who got the news so early have actually started fighting now. What an imposing manner. It's a pity that we got the news too late and can only watch the show." The tone was full of ridicule and anger, and it wasn't concealed at all. Old man Zhong Wei's face darkened. He turned to look, only to see figures floating in the air. It was the Snow Immortal Sea's Yang Bo and the others who had come to denounce him. At a glance, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that he really had to deal with this matter today. A moment ago, Chu Yang was still relaxed and happy, but now, he suddenly felt suffocated, a sudden suffocation. Yes, actually, this wasn't suffocation due to the extreme lack of air, but, when he circulated the heaven-splitting divine technique, he actually couldn't absorb any more. The spiritual energy above actually stopped being channeled. And the water spiritual energy below also stopped. As it stopped moving up and down, the other energies, such as the power of the Earth's core and the power of thick earth, actually stopped entering. Originally, he was in that kind of comfortable feeling where his soul was wandering high up in the sky, floating like an immortal. But all of a sudden, the spiritual energy stopped. This kind of feeling was really unbearable. It seemed a little like when he was in the midst of doing something smoothly, and was in the mood to reach the peak, he suddenly couldn't and instantly became dispirited. What he felt then, what he felt now was more or less the same. Moreover, there was a kind of swelling feeling all over his body, as if his body was about to explode. Retracting his spiritual energy, Chu Yang opened his eyes and withdrew from that wonderful feeling. He faintly felt some regret in his heart. But he didn't know that his crazy absorption just now had caused all kinds of energies to flow in the tribulation space, and the energy of life and death to continuously change, and this water from the Earth's core came. This time, it really caused his big dantian to surge violently at the same time, and all the spiritual energy essence within a radius of thousands of miles was completely absorbed. Even the water spirit force that was hidden deep under the surface of the Earth was completely sucked dry. The death spiritual energy that the sword spirit had sent over previously, but because his dead dantian was already full, had been completely digested. The huge amount of death's spiritual energy had actually been completely converted. The greedy Chu Yang opened his eyes regretfully and opened his inner vision. Suddenly, he stood up abruptly. His hair stood on end. My God, how could this be? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.